Уважаемые участники Восточного экономического форума, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начнется через несколько минут. Dear participants of the Eastern Economic Forum, you are kindly requested to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones, and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session is starting in a few minutes. Уважаемые участники Восточного экономического форума, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начинается. Dear participants of the Eastern Economic Forum, you are kindly requested to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session is starting now. Уважаемые участники Восточного экономического форума, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начинается. Dear participants of the Eastern Economic Forum, you are kindly requested to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session is starting now. Уважаемые участники Восточного экономического форума, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начинается. Dear participants of the Eastern Economic Forum, you are kindly requested to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones, and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session is starting now.
Какое будущее ждет Дальний Восток и Россия? Ответ на этот вопрос находится здесь. Россия будет частью многополярного мира, богатой и высокотехнологичной страной. На Дальнем Востоке России и в Арктике правительством созданы уникальные условия для развития бизнеса, готовая инфраструктура, обеспечение землей, особый режим использования иностранной рабочей силы без квот, гарантия неизменности условий в рамках реализации инвестиционных проектов. По территории региона проходят важнейшие транспортные коридоры,
going through the
большое
region are the most
евразийское
important
пространство.
transport corridors that
Дальний
bring
Восток,
together
ворота
the
России
greater
для
Eurasian
всего
space. The Russian Far East
Азиатско-Тихоокеанского
is
региона
Russia's
и
gateway to the
участников
Asia-Pacific as well as for
объединения
the
BRICS.
participants of the
Вместе
BRICS
мы
Association.
ищем общие пути
Together we're
сотрудничества
searching for
в
common
нестабильном
ways
мире,
of
потому что
cooperation in an
понимаем,
unstable world because we
мировая торговля – это
understand that
инструмент
world trade
развития,
is
а
a
не
tool for
давления.
development rather
Россия
than
открыта
pressure.
для сотрудничества
Russia is
и
open
повернута
to
лицом к
cooperation
мировому
and
сообществу.
it turns
Восстановление
towards
популяции
the
камчатского
world
кречета и другие природоохранные
community.
проекты
Reviving
объединяют
the
сегодня
Kamchatka Jervak
тысячи
and
людей из
population and other
разных стран.
environmental projects bring thousands of people together
Международные
from dozens of
территории
countries.
опережающего развития на
International
Дальнем Востоке
advanced development
становятся
territories in
драйверами
the Russian
удобной
Far East
промышленной
turn
кооперации.
into a driver
Цифровизация
for
стирает
convenient
расстояние
industrial
и повышает
cooperation,
эффективность целых
digitalization,
отраслей.
bridges distances and
Передовые
helps raise the
разработки
efficiency of whole
дальневосточных компаний
industries.
и ученых вносят
Cutting-edge
существенный
discoveries
вклад
of
в технологический
the Far
суверенитет
Eastern
России.
scientists
Дальний
and
Восток
companies are an
становится
important
все более
contribution to Russia's
комфортным для
technological
жизни.
sovereignty.
Главной
This region is
ценностью
becoming
региона
increasingly
являются
comfortable for
люди,
life, and the most
настоящие
important treasure of the
герои
region is
нашего
people
времени.
who
С
are the true
использованием современных
heroes of our
технологий, с опорой
times,
на родную
using
землю.
modern
Именно они
technologies
делают Дальний Восток краем
and counting upon
безграничных
their
возможностей
land, they
и
turn
местом
this
силы
place
России.
into a region
Дальний
for
Восток
infinite
2030.
opportunities and Russia's
Объединим
power
усилия,
pole.
создавая
The
возможности.
Russian Far East 2030, bringing efforts together for creating new opportunities.
Президент Российской Федерации
President
Владимир
Vladimir
Владимирович
Putin of the
Путин,
Russian Federation,
премьер-министр
Prime
Малайзии
Minister
Анвар
Anwar
Ибрахим,
Ibrahim of Malaysia,
заместитель председателя Китайской Народной
Vice President
Республики
Han
Han
Zheng of the
Zheng,
People's Republic of China,
модератор пленарного
Moderator
заседания
of the plenary session,
Александра Суворова.
Alexandra Suvorova.
Добрый день, рада вас приветствовать
Good
на
afternoon.
пленарном заседании
Glad to welcome
Восточного
you to the
экономического
plenary
форума.
session of the
В этом
Eastern
году
Economic
его
Forum.
тема звучит
This
так:
year,
Дальний
the theme
Восток
of the forum
2030. Объединим
the
усилия,
Far East
создавая возможности.
2030, joining
Владимир
efforts
Владимирович,
together
вы
for
уже не
creating
единожды
new
говорили о том,
opportunities.
что приоритет на весь
Mr.
21 век –
President,
это
for
развитие Дальнего Востока.
many
Что
times
уже
now you
сделано,
said
что
that
еще
the 21st
предстоит?
century's
Как
priority
сегодня
is
Россия
the development
выстраивает
of the
взаимодействие
Russian
со
Far
своими
East,
коллегами по
what has
АТР
been
и
done,
по
what is
региональным
yet to be
объединениям?
done, how is
Искать
Russia
ответы
building
и уверенно
its
находить их мы будем вместе в ходе
relations
дискуссии.
to
Но прежде, Владимир Владимирович, вам слово,
the
прошу к
countries of the
трибуне
region.
подойти.
We'll search for the answers to these questions together, but before that, as is tradition, I would like to invite you to the podium, Mr. President. Over to you.
Уважаемый господин Анвар Ибрагим, уважаемый господин Han Zheng, дамы и господа, друзья,
Anwar, Ibrahim,
я
distinguished
приветствую всех
Vice
участников и
President Han
гостей
Zheng, ladies and gentlemen, I would
9-го
like to welcome all the
Восточного
participants and the
экономического
guests of the
форума.
9th Eastern Economic Forum.
Россия и Владивосток
Russia
уже
and
по традиции
Vladivostok,
в начале
in particular,
сентября
as a
принимают
tradition,
представителей бизнеса,
hosts
технологических
business
и
people,
научных команд, руководителей ведущих
technical and
компаний,
scientific
органов
teams,
власти.
CEOs
Специалистов,
of leading
экспертов,
companies
предпринимателей,
and
которые проявляют интерес
officials
к российскому Дальнему Востоку,
in the
к тем
early
действительно
September.
безграничным
Those
возможностям
experts
для
and entrepreneurs
созидания
who
и
show interest in the
взаимовыгодного
Russian Far
партнерства,
East,
которое
as well
открывает
as
этот
interest in the
уникальный
infinite opportunities
район нашей
this
страны.
unique part
Как
of
вы
our
знаете,
country
мы
is opening up
определили
for
развитие
creation
Дальнего
and for
Востока,
mutually
и
beneficial
наша
partnership.
ведущая
As we
Александра сейчас сказала
know,
об этом в качестве
the
национального
development of the
приоритета
Russian
на
Far
весь
East has been
21
defined
век.
as our national priority for the whole 21st century,
Правильность этого
as our
решения
moderator has
подтвердила
just pointed
сама
out.
жизнь.
And
Вызовы,
life
с которыми
itself
мы
has
столкнулись в
confirmed
последнее время, и те
the
объективные
aptness and the
тенденции,
importance of this
а это самое
decision,
главное,
the
которые набирают
challenges
силу
we
в мировой
are
экономике. Тогда
facing
основные деловые
recently,
связи,
as well as the
торговые
trends we are
маршруты и в
witnessing in the
целом
world
весь
economy, all of
вектор
that is
развития
testimony
все
to the aptness
больше
of our decision. We
переориентируется
see
на восток
that
и
business
глобальный
ties, trade
юг.
rules,
Барьеры,
gateway to
которые
these
пытаются навязать.
promising. They
И
allow us
главное,
to overcome the
как
barriers
уже
some
сказал,
Western
наш
elites
Дальний
are trying
Восток
to impose
является
upon the whole
огромным
world. And
пространством
what's
для
most
проявления
important,
деловой
the Russian
инициативы,
Far
для
East
запуска
is a great
сложнейших проектов
great
и
space
формирования
which helps
целых новых
realize your
отраслей.
entrepreneurial
По сути, сегодня
initiative
Дальний Восток безо
and
всякого
launch
преувеличения стал
projects,
важнейшим
build
фактором
new
укрепления
industries.
позиции России в мире.
The Far East,
Нашим
without
флагманом
exaggeration, is right now
в новой
the
глобальной
most important factor for reinforcing
экономической
Russia's
реальности. И от
positions
того, как
in the
будет
world,
развиваться
it's the
Дальний
flagship
Восток, во
of
многом зависит
Russia in the global
будущее
economic
всей
reality,
нашей
and
страны.
our future, to a large extent,
Именно
will be
этой
dependent
теме,
upon how
образу
fast the
будущего,
Russian Far East is
посвящены
developing.
около 100 мероприятий,
And
панельных
this theme
сессий и круглых столов
brings
нынешнего
together
Восточного
around
экономического
100
форума.
events, panel
В целом,
sessions, and
в мероприятиях форума
roundtables
принимают участие
taking
представители более
place as
75
part
стран
of the
и
Eastern
территорий.
Economic Forum. The forum
Очень
brings
важно, что
together
эти дискуссии
representatives of
сопровождаются
more than
предметным
75 countries and
бизнес-диалогом,
territories.
приводят к
These
конкретным
discussions are
инвестиционным
accompanied
решениям
by
и
substantial
торговым
business
договоренностям.
dialogue. They
Отмечу, что
result in
только на
concrete investment solutions
последних
and
3
trade
форумах
agreements.
было
Just
подписано
during the
больше
last 3
1000
forums,
соглашений на
more
общую
than
сумму свыше
1,000
10,5
agreements
триллионов
have
рублей.
been signed to the tune of
Словом,
more than
Восточный экономический
10.5
форум по
trillion
праву стал
rubles.
признанной площадкой для установления прочных деловых контактов и обсуждения стратегических вопросов развития российского Дальнего Востока и всего Азиатско-Тихоокеанского региона. В ходе своего выступления расскажу о некоторых дальнейших шагах в этом направлении, о наших предложениях зарубежным партнерам по укреплению инвестиционной, торговой, производственной, технологической кооперации на пространстве АСЕАН. И, конечно, о результатах и намеченных планах в экономике, инфраструктуре, социальной сфере Дальнего Востока. В вопросах повышения качества жизни наших граждан, жителей этого региона. Напомню, что с 2013 года была запущена принципиально новая стратегическая программа и система управления комплексным развитием Дальнего Востока. Этот подход доказал свою эффективность. За 10 лет в регионе запущены и готовятся к запуску более 3,5 тысяч промышленных, инфраструктурных, технологических, образовательных проектов. Темпы роста инвестиций в основной капитал на Дальнем Востоке в 3 раза. За 10 лет в 3 раза увеличились. И они в 3 раза выше среднероссийских. Результат этих вложений тоже наглядный. Работают около 1000 новых предприятий. Создано более 140 тысяч рабочих мест. Динамика промышленного производства в регионе с 2013 года превысила общероссийские темпы на 25%. Напомню, что сейчас на Дальнем Востоке действует 16 территорий опережающего развития и свободный порт Владивосток. Запущен преференциальный режим на Курилах, создан специальный административный район на острове Русский, где проходит наша с вами встреча. Кстати, этот район уже обеспечил возврат в Россию из офшоров и иностранных юрисдикций активов на сумму свыше 5,5 триллионов рублей.
foreign jurisdictions to the tune of more than
сотни компаний.
5.5 trillion
Мы
rubles.
обязательно
More than
продолжим
100
идти
companies are
вперед.
currently
Будем
residing in
постоянно
this
улучшать деловой
district, and we are
климат и
going
в
to
России, и в
move
целом, и на
forward
Дальнем
and
Востоке.
forge ahead,
В том числе будем
improving the
применять в этом
business climate in Russia
регионе
and in the
более
Russian Far
новые,
East in
эффективные
particular. We're going
подходы к
to
взаимодействию
stick to
с
new, more
иностранными
efficient approaches
инвесторами.
to
Так, на прошлом
cooperating with our foreign
Восточном
investors
экономическом
here.
форуме было
During
объявлено о
the
создании на
last
Дальнем
Eastern
Востоке
Economic Forum, we
международных
announced
территорий опережающего
the
развития.
establishment of
Они должны
international
предлагать
advanced
глобально
development territories in the Russian
конкурентоспособные
Far East.
условия
They should
для
provide
иностранных
globally
инвесторов и прежде
competitive
всего,
conditions
конечно,
for
из
foreign
дружественных
investors,
стран.
especially from foreign friendly
Первый
countries.
международный тур
The first
предполагается
international
создать
advanced
здесь,
development
в Приморском
territory
крае.
is scheduled to
Большой
be set up
интерес к
here
нему
in
проявляют
Primorsky
наши
region.
китайские
Our
друзья,
Chinese
а
partners
также
are showing a great
Республика
deal of
Беларусь,
interest
с
in
участием
that,
которой
as well as
в
the
Приморье может
Republic of
появиться
Belarus,
новый глубоководный
which
порт.
can
Я
participate
прошу
in
Государственную Думу и
building
правительство
a new
Российской
deep water
Федерации
port here in
ускорить работу
Primorsky
над
district,
законопроектом,
and I would like to
необходимым
ask
для
the
запуска
Russian State Duma and the
международных
government to
торгов.
accelerate
Дополнительным фактором
their
для
work
расширения
on the
работы с
draft law,
зарубежными
which is
партнерами
required
должно
for
стать
setting up
еще
such
одно
advanced development
нормативное
territories.
решение,
Another
а
factor
именно
is
с 1
another
сентября
regulatory decision we are
текущего года
about to
в
make.
нашем законодательстве
Starting from
предусмотрена
September the
возможность
1st this
использования
year, our
иностранных
legislation
стандартов в
stipulates
проектировании и
the
строительстве.
possibility of using
Конечно,
foreign
речь
standards
идет
in
о
design and
стандартах тех
construction. Of
государств,
course,
где
I'm
требования
referring
к
to the
качеству,
standards of those
надежности,
countries
безопасности
where
капитальных
the
объектов не ниже, чем
resilience
у
and
нас.
security
Рассчитываю,
requirements
что
for
этот
construction
подход
works are
найдет
at
свое
least at the
применение,
same level
в том числе в
as
международных
ours
турах
or
Дальнего Востока.
stricter. I do hope this approach is going to be
Хорошим примером
implemented here,
сотрудничества с
in
зарубежными
particular in the
партнерами
advanced development
крупных
territories in the
вложений
Russian
в
Far
стройку, в
East.
создание
Another
рабочих мест
important testimony
должно стать
to
развитие
cooperation
острова
with
Большой
foreign partners
Уссурийский в Хабаровском
is
крае.
the
Речь идет о создании
development
здесь
of
крупных
Bolshoi
логистических
Ussuriysky Island in
пунктов
Khabarovsk region.
пропуска через
We intend
госграницу,
to build
о
big
расширении
logistics
автодорожной
companies
сети.
here,
В
border
мае этого года,
checkpoints,
в
build
рамках
new
государственного
roads.
визита
In May
в
this
Китайскую
year,
Народную
during my
Республику, мы
state
договорились с
visit to the
китайскими
People's
коллегами о
Republic of
совместной
China,
работе
our
над этим
Chinese
проектом.
counterparts, and we have
Уверен, он
agreed to
придаст
work jointly
хороший,
on this
мощный импульс
project. This will give
развитию Хабаровска и
a
всего
powerful
региона.
impetus to the development
Прошу
of
правительство
Khabarovsk and the region
отработать
as a
все
whole. I would like to
организационные
ask the
и
government
финансовые
to work
вопросы,
through all the
чтобы
organizational
приступить к
and
реализации
financial
этого плана
matters
уже со
to
следующего
start implementing this
2025
plan
года.
starting from next
Конечно,
year,
одним из ключевых
2025.
вопросов для старта
Of course,
деловых
one of the key
инициатив
issues
в обрабатывающей
for
промышленности,
launching
в жилищном строительстве и обновлении
initiatives
транспортной
in
сети во всех
manufacturing, in
сферах и
residential
отраслях
construction
является
and development,
снабжение
and in
электроэнергией.
upgrading the transportation
Объем
network. We need to
энергопотребления
have in
на Дальнем
mind
Востоке
the
растет.
supply
Сегодня
of
это
energy.
69
The
миллиардов
electricity
киловатт-часов в
consumption
год, а к
in
концу
the Russian Far
десятилетия
East is growing.
прогнозируется
Right now it stands at
96
69
миллиардов. При этом уже
billion
сейчас некоторые
kilowatt-hours
районы,
per
населенные
annum. By
пункты
the end
и
of
крупные
the
дальневосточные
decade,
инвесторы
it's gonna
сталкиваются
rise
с
to
нехваткой
96
электроэнергии.
billion, and some
Вынуждены
settlements and
ждать ввода
districts
новых
and big
станций, из-за чего
investors are running into shortages
сдерживаются
of
строительство,
electricity,
промышленные объекты,
which puts a
инфраструктура.
constraint on
Уже поручил
the
правительство
construction of
вместе
new
с нашими
residential areas
крупными
and
энергокомпаниями,
industrial facilities and
деловыми кругами
infrastructure. I've already
подготовить
instructed the government to
долгосрочную
work with
программу
our
развития
big
энергетических
energy companies
мощностей
and
на
business
Дальнем Востоке.
circles to draft a long-term program
Предусмотреть
for
для нее
developing the
механизмы
energy capacities in the
проектного
Russian Far
финансирования.
East, and need to
В
provide
рамках этой
the
программы
tools for project
предстоит
funding.
ликвидировать прогнозный дефицит
And the-
электроэнергии на Дальнем Востоке.
Through this
Прежде
program, we
всего,
need
за
to
счет
remove
ввода
any
в строй
shortages
новых
we
объектов
anticipate
генерации.
in
Например, таких
electricity
как
supply in the
Нижнеудейская
Russian
ГЭС в
Far East.
Амурской области,
First and
которая
foremost, through
будет не только
commissioning
снабжать
new
электроэнергией сам
electricity
регион
facilities such as
и восточные
Nizhneudeyskaya
полигоны
hydropower
железных
plant
дорог,
in
но и
Amursk
поможет
region.
защитить
It will provide
территории,
energy to the
населенные
region and to
пункты
the
от
eastern
паводков.
polygon
Также прошу
of
подумать о
the
строительстве на
Trans-Siberian
Дальнем
Railroad.
Востоке
It will
атомных
help
электростанций.
protect
Вчера
the
тоже об
territories
этом
against
с коллегами
pressures.
говорили.
And I would also like
Подчеркну,
the government to think
план
about
развития
building NPPs
электроэнергетики
in the Russian
должен
Far
учитывать
East.
как текущие,
We
так
spoke about
и
that
перспективные
yesterday, and this
потребности
plan
бизнеса и
should
граждан.
take into account both
Долгосрочные
the
задачи,
current
которые стоят
needs
перед
as well
нашими
as
субъектами
the needs
Федерации,
we
городами
anticipate in
и
future
населенными пунктами.
among the business
Это в полной
and
мере
our
относится и к
citizens,
укреплению
and of
транспортных,
course
логистических
it should take
возможностей
into
Дальнего
account the
Востока,
long-term
да и
goals.
всей страны. Здесь
And it
самый
should also
значимый
reinforce
крупный
the
проект это, конечно же, расширение восточного полигона железных дорог. За последние 10 лет на Транссибе и Баме построено более 2000 и модернизировано свыше 5000 километров пути. Возведено и реконструировано более 100 мостов и тоннелей, в том числе через реку Вену, Гурею, Селингу. По итогам текущего года провозная способность восточного полигона железных дорог должна вырасти до 180 миллионов тонн. В этом году мы запустили очередной, третий этап развития этой важнейшей транспортной артерии. Работы ведутся, они развернуты. Подчеркну, предстоит не только расширить узкие места магистралей, ввести в строй более 300 объектов, включая дублеры Северомуйского, Кузнецовского, Кадарского тоннеля, а также мост через Амур. Задача гораздо более масштабная. Так, например, на всем протяжении БАМа предстоит проложить сплошные вторые пути. При этом уже сейчас нужно думать о перспективе. Считаю, что нам нужно сделать БАМ не только полностью двухпутным, но и электрифицировать эту магистраль. В ближайшие 8 лет на восточном полигоне предстоит уложить 3100 километров железнодорожного полотна. Для сравнения, столько же было уложено в рамках первого и второго этапа расширения БАМа и Транссиба вместе взятых. И столько же в годы строительства БАМа с 1974 по 1984 годы. Сегодня мы реализуем проект, который по масштабу больше самого крупного инфраструктурного инвестиционного проекта Советского Союза, реализованного всеми республиками СССР, причем с огромным напряжением сил. Подобно Транссибу, континентальной артерии должен стать новый автотранспортный коридор от Санкт-Петербурга до Владивостока. Причем речь не только об увеличении объемов грузоперевозок и повышении качества автомобильного сообщения. Со строительством коридора получит развитие и внутренний туризм. Весь маршрут трассы проходит через десятки регионов Российской Федерации. Коридор развивается поэтапно. В декабре прошлого года открыта современная автомагистраль между Москвой и Казанью. В конце текущего года она должна дойти до Екатеринбурга, а затем до Тюмени. Также будут построены обходы Омска, Новосибирска, Кемерово, Камска. В дальнейшем, когда современная дорога достигнет Владивостока, автотранспортный коридор будет насчитывать более 10 тысяч километров, включая подъезды к пунктам пропуска через государственную границу России. В этой связи напомню о задаче, которая была поставлена в послании Федерального собрания, а именно сократить очереди на границе, снизить типовое время досмотра грузового автотранспорта. Это не должно превышать 10 минут. Уже в 2026 году нужно выйти на этот результат на первых 5 пограничных переходах Дальнего Востока. Кстати, на железнодорожных переходах уже сейчас достигнута хорошая динамика по скорости обработки грузов на границе. Подчеркну, и на восточном полигоне железных дорог, и на всех крупных автодорожных объектах России развернута действительно большая работа. В ней задействованы специалисты, инженеры, проектировщики из многих регионов нашей страны. Своим интенсивным трудом, ответственным подходом к делу они доказывают, что Россия может и готова строить быстро, много и качественно, реализовывать инфраструктурные транспортные проекты национального и в полном смысле этого слова глобального масштаба. Среди таких проектов развитие Северного морского пути как международного логистического маршрута. За последние 10 лет его грузопоток вырос почти на порядок. Если в 2014 году по Севморпути было перевезено всего 4 миллиона тонн грузов, то в прошлом году уже более 36 миллионов тонн. Это в 5 раз больше рекорда советского времени. Будем и дальше наращивать грузопоток, в том числе за счет активного освоения арктических месторождений, перенаправления грузов с запада на восток за счет увеличения транзита. Масштабный план развития Северного морского пути развернут. Мы строим строим ледоколы, развиваем спутниковую группировку, укрепляем береговую инфраструктуру, сеть аварийно-спасательных центров, чтобы раскатать новые логистические маршруты. 2 года назад по Северному пути были запущены каботажные рейсы. Сегодня в этой схеме 14 портов северо-запада, Арктики и Дальнего Востока. Отмечу, что по итогам прошлого года мощность российских портов в границах Северного пути превысила 40 миллионов тонн. Разумеется, считаем, что это только начало. Будем и дальше наращивать их возможности, модернизировать перевалку грузов, расширять ближние и дальние железнодорожные подходы к ним. В том числе это позволит нарастить мощности Мурманского транспортного узла до 100 миллионов тонн, а в перспективе, конечно же, и выше. Отмечу, что в развитии Мурманского транспортного узла заинтересованы и наши партнеры по евразийской интеграции. Так, коллеги из Беларуси, которые упоминал, предметно рассматривают перспективы развития портовой инфраструктуры и своих терминалов на Кольском полуострове. И мы, конечно, приглашаем к работе в этом проекте другие страны. Знаю, что заинтересованность в этой работе есть. Добавлю, что все крупные транспортно-логистические инициативы России реализуются с привлечением передовых инженерных, цифровых и экологичных решений, что обеспечивает дополнительный спрос на продукцию отечественных машиностроительных и металлургических предприятий, на услуги строительные и других отраслей науки и высокотехнологичного бизнеса. Именно так, на основе самых современных подходов, с учетом качественно возросших технологических, экономических, образовательных возможностей всей страны, необходимо решать задачи стратегического развития Дальнего Востока, включая дальнейшее освоение такой сильной, базовой отрасли региона, как недропользование. Сегодня на Дальнем Востоке добывается весь российский вольфрам, олово, плавиковый шпат и борные руды. 80% алмазов и урана, больше 70% серебра, 60% золота страны. Вместе с тем, в ключевых центрах добычи, в том числе в Якутии и на Чукотке, запасы разрабатываются давно и объективно ограничены, а спрос на полезные ископаемые растет, причем не только на экспорт, но и на нашем внутреннем рынке. Мы должны обеспечить ресурсный суверенитет страны, сформировать устойчивую базу для бесперебойного снабжения национальной экономики наших регионов, городов и поселков доступным сырьем и топливом, создать основу для производства новых материалов и источников энергии. Причем, как уже сказал, это нужно делать с использованием более эффективных отечественных технологий и научных разработок в сфере экологии и природопользования. На нашем форуме в прошлом году было сформулировано поручение правительства составить отдельные программы изучения недр Дальнего Востока и Сибири, включить их в федеральный проект «Геология. Возрождение легенды». Эти программы готовы. По оценке, каждый рубль государственных средств, вложенных в геологоразведку, привлечет как минимум 10 рублей частных инвестиций. Но самое главное, вложенные средства, безусловно, окупаются, они будут обеспечат мощную отдачу, комплексный эффект по всей производственной цепочке. Но нужно делать эту работу своевременно, понимая горизонт планирования инвестиций. Я прошу правительство в проекте федерального бюджета на предстоящие 3 года заложить финансирование указанных программ в объеме, необходимых для достижения поставленных целей. Повторю, Дальний Восток имеет потенциал кратного роста геологической изученности. В том числе речь идет о поиске и добыче высокотехнологичного сырья, титана, лития, неония, редкоземельных металлов, которые требуются в экономике будущего. И главное, что все это у нас
which are
есть.
requisite for the
Потенциал
economy of the
этих
future. We
индустрий
have
для
all of
роста
those
дальневосточных регионов,
resources
создания рабочих
available.
мест, для
The
повышения
potential of these
доступности различных
industries
услуг
will
и
improve the
сервисов,
attractiveness
укрепления
of the
связи и
regions,
логистики
create new
огромный.
jobs, improve
Мы будем поддерживать
connectivity and
развитие на Дальнем
logistics.
Востоке
The potential
передовых,
is great.
креативных
We'll
отраслей,
help
инфраструктуры
create
экономики больших данных,
cutting-edge creative
искусственного
industries in the
интеллекта.
Russian
В
Far
том
East,
числе организуем зону для
build
обработки
the infrastructure for
беспилотных
the big
летательных
data
аппаратов
economy
в
and
гражданских
AI,
целях.
for piloting
Чтобы
UAVs
задействовать
for
на
commercial
полную мощь
purposes
преимущества
and civilian
технологического
purposes.
прогресса,
In order to tap
продолжим наращивать
the
научный и
technological
образовательный
potential, we
потенциал
will
Дальнего Востока.
continue to
В
improve
регионе
the
уже
scientific
началась
and educational
реализация
potential
новых
of the
проектов
Russian Far East.
университетских
This region has
кампусов
already
Южно-Сахалинске
launched
и
the
Хабаровске.
construction
Но этого,
of university
очевидно,
campuses in
недостаточно для Дальнего
Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk and in
Востока.
Khabarovsk,
Предлагаю
but that is not
запустить работу
sufficient for the
еще
Russian
по
Far East.
нескольким
I
проектам,
suggest
а
we
именно построить
should
новые кампусы
embark
в Улан-Удэ,
upon several
Петропавловске,
new
Камчатском,
projects
Чите.
such as
Также
university
реализуем
campuses in
строительство второй
Ulan-Ude,
очереди
Petropavlovsk,
кампуса
Kamchatsky and Chita,
Дальневосточного федерального университета здесь, во Владивостоке. В таких центрах будут созданы все условия для учебы, работы, проживания студентов. Откроются площадки для молодежного предпринимательства и бизнес-клубов. Будем также развивать и университеты в Арктике. В дополнение к уже запущенному проекту кампуса в Архангельске добавится такой же проект и в Мурманске. Также на базе кампусов будут действовать передовые инженерные школы. Две такие школы на Сахалине и во Владивостоке уже созданы. Их задача не только готовить специалистов для промышленности и сельского хозяйства, транспорта и сферы услуг для использования искусственного интеллекта, но и предлагать оригинальные решения для серийного внедрения в системе управления в социальной сфере, в отраслях экономики. На острове Русский 2 года успешно действует научно-технический центр компании «Владимир». Он специализируется на инновационных разработках в сфере глобальной энергетики. Они уже активно применяются в программе технического перевооружения энергетического комплекса Дальнего Востока. Также с участием наших ведущих компаний будет создан еще один крупный инновационный научно-технологический центр на острове Русский. На базе Дальневосточного федерального университета. Его профилем станут изыскания и практические решения в области морской инженерии, биотехнологий, биомедицины и других перспективных направлений. Я прошу коллег из правительства и Приморского края задействовать инструменты дальневосточной концессии для реализации проекта, а также продумать механизмы привлечения в этот центр ученых из других научных центров России, да и из других стран. Имею в виду конкурентоспособные мотивационные программы и социальный пакет для специалистов и членов семьи. Уважаемые коллеги, мы понимаем, успех в реализации наших планов и здесь, на Дальнем Востоке, да и по всей стране, по всей России, зависит прежде всего от людей, от российских семей. Уже не раз говорил, нельзя руководствоваться старой логикой, когда сперва заводы, фабрики, а только потом подумаем о тех, кто трудится на этих предприятиях. Такая логика не только несправедлива, она просто не работает в современной экономике. В экономике будущего, которая строится, буквально строится вокруг человека. Именно поэтому вместе с новыми экономическими планами на Дальнем Востоке мы развернули и крупные социальные инициативы, запустили механизм единой субсидии. С ее помощью строятся и реконструируются школы и детские сады, поликлиники и больницы, спортивные комплексы, благоустраивается городская среда, идет обновление инфраструктуры. На сегодняшний день уже построено почти 2000 социальных и инфраструктурных объектов. Единая субсидия стала мощным финансовым рычагом для механизма дальневосточной концессии. Ее задача – привлечь частные инвестиции в социальные проекты. Бизнес уже запланировал вложения более 120 миллиардов рублей на эти цели. Реализуется 36 таких инициатив. Работа уже идет. Например, здесь, в Приморье, строится круглогодичный горнолыжный курорт. В Улан-Удэ Национальный музей театр, в Петропавловск-Камчатском появится новый общественный центр, в Хабаровске художественный музей, в Магадане и Чите возводятся спортивные комплексы, новые спортивные комплексы. Там же в Чите и Биробиджане полностью модернизируется городское освещение. Мы, конечно же, будем и дальше поддерживать работу дальневосточной концессии, достраивать ее на потребности граждан и возможности бизнеса. Что хочу подчеркнуть отдельно. Сегодня в рамках государственного и частного партнерства по всей стране строятся школы, аэропорты, мосты, автомобильные трассы, обновляется городской транспорт. Однако объем таких проектов еще относительно невелик. Менее 3% ВВП или 4,4 триллиона рублей. Чтобы более интенсивно развивать эту сферу, нужно улучшать профильное законодательство, а также сам механизм работы государственного частного партнерства. Делать так, чтобы риски для всех сторон и органов власти и бизнеса были прозрачны и распределялись справедливо, в том числе при реализации общественно важных проектов. С учетом имеющегося опыта и наработанной практики по проектам технологического суверенитета, предлагаю корпорации развития ВЭП выступить в качестве одного из обязательных участников проектов государственного частного партнерства, чтобы корпорация контролировала систему распределения рисков, поддержала выгоду проекта как для государства, так и для бизнеса.
As well as for the business. We have already spoken about this with Sergei Ivanovich, and the corporation is ready for that. The same goes for the project of financing, project financing factory that stimulates private investment. So I ask the government together with VEB determine the specific parameters and scale for deals in the context of state and private partnerships that should be implemented with the obligatory participation of the VEB. Going further, it's important for the private investment to be attracted, having long-term plans of development of industries and territories, as well as our settlements, cities, towns and villages for their comprehensive development. For comprehensive development. That is why we actively promote principally new instruments to improve the quality of life of people. They are called master plans. Many people know about it. Our Russian colleagues mostly know about that. We have already confirmed such plans for 22 administrative centers and urban agglomeration of the Russian Far East, where more than 4 million people live. For instance, for a satellite city of Vladivostok, this master plan will unite in one logic of development a whole agglomeration of Vladivostok, Artem, and Nadezhdinsky district. And we should start implementing it since the next 2025 years. What is the specifics, the meaning of the approach of these new master plans? We need to see what was done before on the local level. Economic and urban planning authorities were not interacting effectively. Economy, business were developing by themselves, mostly construction, utilities, social infrastructure were separate. As a result, disbalanced decisions were made and the urban spaces were also disbalanced. Now, the region and local administrations have had a series of discussions with the residents and business. They have found problems, determined the potential on all the fields of development for every city, and there is an individual long-term model for every city. In fact, in the context of one document, we have the concept of social, economic and spatial development for every city, with commissioning of transport, utilities, energy and other kinds of infrastructure. And I'll repeat, the integral task here is to improve the quality of life of citizens. This is our goal. The most part of the events of the master plans in the Russian Far East are already designed, but I need to say right now that 70 facilities will be commissioned until the end of this year, and then the pace of implementing these master plans should be increased. To point out federal subjects and bodies that are the most active in implementing this work, the Ministry for Development of the Russian Far East has created a special rating. The leaders in implementing master plans now are Sakhalin and Magadan regions, the Republic of Buryatia, as well as Kamchatka and Khabarovsky territories. I thank colleagues for the pace gained, and I ask to keep building it up. I point out that every year we will follow the dynamics of Far Eastern master plans. We'll point out the best regional teams and federal bodies
оставшиеся
so that
коллеги
the
брали
rest
с них
could
пример,
follow suit
принимали передовой опыт.
and use their best
Добавлю,
practices.
что
I'll
мы
add
приняли
that
решение
we
о
have made a
дополнительных
decision
объемах
about
бюджетных
additional
кредитов на
volumes of
реализацию
budgetary loans
мастер-планов,
to implement master
утвержденных
plans
правительством. На
approved
эти
by the
цели уже
government.
выделено
We have
30
already
миллиардов
allocated
рублей.
30 billion rubles, and I'll underline
Дополнительно
this will
предлагаю
be
из утвержденного
additional.
лимита таких
There is
кредитов на
a
период
confirmed
с
limit
25 по
since
30
2025
год
till 2030.
целенаправленно выделить 100
And I
миллиардов
propose
рублей
to
на
allocate 100
реализацию
billion
проектов
rubles to
мастер-планов наших
implement master plan
дальневосточных и
projects
арктических
in our
городов.
Far
То есть
Eastern and
сверх
Arctic
тех лимитов, которые
cities.
регионы
So,
могут
above the
получить по
limit that the
стандартному
regions can
распределению.
receive
О
according to the
реализации
standard
планов развития
distribution.
городов нельзя забывать и при
Speaking about
формировании
implementing urban
новых
development plans,
национальных
we should not
проектов,
forget about
работа
forming
над
new
которыми
national
сейчас
projects.
находится в завершающей стадии.
They are already on
Более
their
того,
final stage.
необходимо выделить
Moreover,
средства
we
на
need
развитие
to allocate
дальневосточных
funds for
городов в
development of Far Eastern cities
отдельные
in
разделы.
separate sections.
В первую очередь,
First
в
of all,
рамках таких нацпроектов,
in the
как
context of such national
инфраструктура для
projects as
жизни,
infrastructure for
эффективные
life,
транспортные системы,
effective
семья,
transport system,
продолжительная и
family,
активная
long
жизнь,
and
а
active
также
life,
молодежь и
as
дети.
well as youth
Что
and
еще
children.
здесь важно?
What else
Половина
should be pointed
расходов
out?
мастер-планов
Half of master plan
дальневосточных
spending
городов
for
приходится на
Far Eastern cities
внебюджетные
falls on extra
источники,
budgetary
то есть
sources.
на вложение
It means
бизнеса,
the investment of
градообразующих
business,
предприятий, которые
city-forming
готовы
enterprises
строить
that are ready to
поликлиники,
build
детские
clinics,
сады, спортивные
kindergartens, sports
центры,
facilities,
прокладывать
pave the
дороги,
roads,
обновлять
renew
коммунальные
utilities
сети,
networks,
восстанавливать
restore
памятники
cultural
культуры и
monuments,
так далее.
and so on and so forth.
Как уже сказал, мы
As I have
обязательно
already said, we
поддержим
will
такие
support
вложения
such
бизнеса.
investments
Уверен,
of
что
the
с
business,
наращиванием
because I'm
темпов
sure
преобразования в
that building
городах
up the pace
их
of
доля,
transformation in cities,
безусловно,
their share will
будет расти.
grow.
В том числе со стороны
For
стратегических
instance,
партнеров,
from
крупных
the part of the
предприятий,
strategic
которые в
partners,
рамках
big
своих социальных
enterprises
программ
that
активно участвуют в
their social
обновлении городов,
programs and
где
actively participate in
развивают свой
urban
бизнес.
modernization where they
Их
develop their
результаты,
business.
мощности и опыт
Their
нужно
resources,
также
capacities and
задействовать для
experience
воплощения в жизнь
should
мастер-плана.
also be used
Так,
to
стратегические
make master
партнеры
plans a
могут
reality.
полностью
Strategic partners
профинансировать
can
создание
fully
объектов
finance
социальной
the building
инфраструктуры
of
в
social
городе,
infrastructure
поселке,
facilities
территории,
in
где
a city,
реализуются
town
их
or a territory
инвестиционные
where the
проекты.
investment projects are
А
being
после передачи
implemented.
такого социального объекта
After they
муниципалитету
transfer
или
such a social
региону,
facility
получить
to
компенсацию
municipality or
за
region,
счет
they can receive
налогов, льгот
compensation
и иных
through taxes,
преференций.
benefits,
Прошу
or other
правительство
preferences, and I
определить
ask the government
параметры
to
такого
determine the
механизма.
parameters of such a
Подчеркну,
mechanism.
опыт Дальнего
I'll
Востока
underline that the
станет
experience of the Russian
основой для
Far
того,
East will
чтобы
be a
масштабировать
basis
практику
to scale the
мастер-плана.
practice of master
Как было
plans.
отмечено в послании
As it
Федеральному
was
собранию, до
pointed out in the
2030
message to the
года
Federal
такие
Assembly, up to
стратегические документы
2030, such
будут
strategic
подготовлены
documents
для
will be prepared
200
for
населенных пунктов
200
России. То есть мы
settlements all
будем
over Russia.
масштабировать
So we're going to
22
scale this
населенных пункта
program.
сегодня на Дальнем
Now,
Востоке,
22 settlements in
200
the
по
Russian
всей
Far East,
стране,
200
включая
settlements all
опорные
over the
города,
country,
которые
including
вносят
anchor
вклад в
cities
укрепление
that contribute to the
технологического
strengthening
суверенитета
technological
России.
sovereignty of Russia.
Далее. Комфортная городская
Going
среда и
further,
масштабная
comfortable
и
urban
социальная
environment and
инфраструктура
social
масштабная – это
infrastructure
неотъемлемая часть
are an
современной
integral part
комплексной
of
жилой
modern
застройки.
comprehensive residential
Дальневосточные
development.
инвесторы,
Far Eastern
реализующие такие проекты,
investors
имеют право на
implementing such projects have
льготы
a
территории
right for
опережающего
preferences
развития в
of the
рамках
territories of
инструмента
advanced
«Дальневосточный
development in the
квартал».
context
Он
of
сейчас
Far
проходит
Eastern District
обкатку в
instrument.
7
Now it is
регионах.
being
С его
piloted in
помощью
7
планируется
regions.
построить
We
1
plan
миллион
to build
800 тысяч квадратных метров жилья, где будут жить
square
почти
meters of
70
housing
тысяч
where
человек.
almost
В целом
7,000 people are
отмечу,
going to
что за
live.
последние 5 лет
In the
объем
recent 5 years, the volume of the
ежегодно построенного
annual
жилья на Дальнем Востоке вырос примерно вдвое.
the
Это
annual number
хороший
of
показатель.
housing being
По
built
итогам
in the Russian
текущего
Far East
года
has
ожидается
doubled,
вот
and by
5
the end of this year we
миллионов 600
expect
тысяч
commissioning of
квадратных метров.
5,600,000
Можно
square
сказать,
meters of houses.
определяющую роль здесь сыграла
Important determining role is being played
дальневосточная ипотека.
by the Far
Как вы
Eastern
знаете, мы
mortgage. As you know,
распространили ее на
we
участников
have
специальной
distributed
военной
it also
операции.
for the participants of the
Также
special military
кредитом
operation.
под рекордно низкие
The loan at a
2%
record low
годовых
2%
могут
rate
воспользоваться
can be
молодые
used
семьи,
by
в
young
которых
families
родители
where
не
parents
достигли возраста 36
are less than 36
лет.
years
И кроме
old.
того, получатели
Moreover,
дальневосточного
this,
гектара, сотрудники
Far
предприятий
Eastern
оборонно-промышленного
Hectare
комплекса,
can
учителя
be used
и
by
врачи.
employees of
Такая же
the
ипотека на
enterprises
тех
of
же
defense and
условиях
industry
выдается
complex,
и в
teachers and doctors.
арктических регионах.
The same
Мы
goes
уже
for
продлили эти
those who live
программы
in
до
the
конца
Arctic regions.
2030 года.
And
Знаю,
we are
что
going
в правительстве
longer till
были дискуссии
2030. I know
относительно
that
условий
there were
такой
discussions
ипотеки
in
в
the governments
дальнейшем.
about the terms of
Предлагаю
such
здесь
mortgage in the future.
поставить точку.
And I propose
Сохранить
to put a
ставку
stop
по
here
дальневосточной и
and preserve the
арктической
rate
ипотекам
for Far Eastern and
неизменной,
Arctic
а
mortgages
именно
without change,
2% годовых.
2% per annum.
Добавлю, что с прошлого года в Приморском крае семьи, в которых рождается третий ребенок, имеют право получить выплату на погашение ипотечного кредита в увеличенном размере. Не 450 тысяч рублей, как по всей стране, а 1 миллион рублей. Мы договорились, что выплату в аналогичном размере, то есть 1 миллион рублей, нужно ввести для многодетных семей во всех дальневосточных регионах, где коэффициент рождаемости ниже среднего по федеральному округу. Я прошу коллег ускорить принятие нормативных актов, чтобы эта мера заработала с 1 июля текущего года, то есть, по сути, задним числом. Отдельно хочу остановиться на очень важных вопросах для семей, для наших граждан, которые живут, что называется, вдали от большой земли, в труднодоступных небольших городах и поселках Дальнего Востока и Арктики. Наша задача обеспечить регулярное, бесперебойное снабжение этих населенных пунктов, сократить сроки и стоимость доставки грузов. В прошлом году был принят закон о северном завозе. Теперь он планируется централизованно на федеральном уровне. Его использование координируется на местах в регионах. Перевозка и обслуживание грузов жизнеобеспечения получили приоритетный транспорт. На закупку и доставку северного завоза могут выделяться бюджетные кредиты. Получит развитие и опорная транспортно-логистическая сеть северного завоза, включая автодороги, железнодорожные станции, морские и речные порты и аэропорты. Со следующего года начнет работать единый морской оператор северного завоза. Пока в пилотном режиме он будет перевозить грузы на Чукотки. В дальнейшем мы расширим географию его работы на Якутию, Камчатский край, Архангельскую область и Красноярский край. Отдельная тема связана с медицинским обслуживанием граждан, которые живут в труднодоступных регионах, городах и поселках. На Дальнем Востоке есть населенные пункты, до которых можно доехать только по железной дороге. При этом там не хватает специалистов для проведения диспансеризации, профосмотров, оказания медицинской помощи. С сентября этого года в 5 дальневосточных субъектах Федерации, а со следующего года в 8 субъектах начнет курсировать передвижной консультативно-диагностический центр. По сути, этот поезд представляет собой настоящую современную поликлинику и аптеку на колесах с современным оборудованием и врачами-специалистами. Они смогут проводить широкий спектр исследований, консультироваться с коллегами из ведущих научных центров России, использовать технологии искусственного интеллекта для формирования медицинского заключения и, конечно, оказывать профессиональную помощь, доступ к которой необходим всем гражданам страны, независимо от места проживания. Хочу поблагодарить в этой связи компанию РЖД, всех врачей, медсестер, железнодорожников, других специалистов, которые участвуют в этом благородном и таком нужном для людей проекте. Прошу правительство помочь компании обеспечить бесперебойную деятельность этого современного медицинского центра и аптеки на базе поезда. И еще, для укрепления связи между городами и поселками Дальнего Востока будем и дальше развивать местное авиационное сообщение. Как уже говорил, к 30 году количество пассажиров на внутренних авиарейсах региона должно увеличиться до 4 миллионов в год. Поручило же правительство утвердить соответствующий план конкретных шагов и мероприятий. Его подготовка, безусловно, затянулась. Прошу оперативно принять все необходимые решения. Конечно, важный вопрос – это авиапарк. Нам надо строить собственные самолеты, надежные, качественные и в нужных нам объемах. В этой связи прошу ускорить разработку пассажирской версии легкого многоцелевого самолета «Байкал». Нужно запустить его серийное производство уже в ближайшее время. При этом обращаю внимание, стоимость и технические характеристики самолета должны быть конкурентоспособными, чтобы цена перелетов на них была доступной для граждан. Ну а если как-то по-другому выглядит ситуация. Ну, надо
If the situation is different, then we need to
Уважаемые
subsidize
друзья,
it.
за последние
Dear friends,
годы Дальний
in the
Восток
recent
стал
years, the Russian
более
Far East has
привлекательным
become
для
more
молодежи,
attractive for the
для
youth,
ребят, которые
for
хотят
those
приобрести
people
интересную
who want
профессию,
to
а также
learn
для
interesting profession,
подготовленных специалистов,
for
которые желают проявить себя,
professionals
свои
that want to
умения,
show
навыки,
themselves and their
опробовать
skills, their
силы в
knowledge,
избранном
that want to
деле.
try themselves
8 лет
in
подряд на
the
Дальнем
profession that
Востоке
they have
наблюдается
chosen.
приток
There is an
молодежи в
inflow of
возрасте от
youth
20 до
from 20 to
24
25
лет.
years to the
В том
Russian Far
числе
East in the
сработали
recent
наши
8 years.
адресные меры
Our
поддержки.
targeted
Так,
measures
в рамках
of support
программ
have
«Земский
functioned.
учитель»,
For
«Земский
instance,
доктор» и
local
«Земский
teacher, local
фельдшер»
doctor,
были
local medical
вдвое
assistant
увеличены
have
единовременные
functioned,
выплаты
and
для
they
педагогов и врачей, которые
teachers and
переезжают
doctors
работать
that
в села
go
и поселки Дальнего Востока до
to
2
the Russian Far East to
миллионов
work in the
рублей. Для
towns,
медицинских
and
работников среднего звена
cities
до 1
receive up to
миллиона.
2 million
Мы уже
rubles, and mid-level
договорились
medical workers
продлить эти
receive up
программы
to
до
1 million
2030
rubles. We are
года
going to
и при
prolong
этом
this program
сохранить
until
повышенный
2030,
двойной дальневосточный
and
коэффициент выплат.
the payout ratio is going
Еще
to
одно
be
решение касается программы
increased. It
«Земский
will be a
работник
double Far
культуры».
Eastern
Она
payout
призвана
ratio.
поддержать
Another program
сотрудников
goes for
сельских
local
клубов,
cultural
домов
professionals.
творчества,
It
библиотек,
supports
музыкальных школ,
local
музеев,
clubs,
то есть тех
creative
людей,
centers,
которые, по
libraries,
сути,
musical
сберегают
schools,
наш
museums.
культурный
Those people who
суверенитет,
preserve our cultural
идентичность,
sovereignty,
наши
identity,
традиционные
our traditional
ценности,
values.
воспитывают молодых людей.
Those who educate
Прошу
our youth,
правительство
and I ask the
начать
government to start
реализацию этой программы с
implementing
1
this
января
program since
будущего
the
года. И,
1st
конечно,
January
для
next
работников
year.
культуры,
And of
которые едут
course,
в
if we
небольшие
speak about
населенные пункты
cultural
на Дальнем
professions
Востоке,
that go to
нужно
small settlements in the
предусмотреть
Russian Far
повышенные
East,
дальневосточные
they
коэффициенты
should also
разовых
receive
выплат, а также предусмотреть для них
payouts
возможность
with
участия
the
в программе
increased Far
дальневосточной
Eastern
ипотеки.
payout
Добавлю,
ratios,
что мы
as well as
обязательно
the possibility to
продолжим
participate
создание
in the
на
Far
Дальнем
Eastern
Востоке
mortgage
новых
program.
музеев. И в рамках
There are
этой
new museums being
работы
constructed in the Russian
поручаю
Far East.
увековечить память о
For
Курильской
instance,
десантной
in the
операции
context of this
августа-сентября
work, we are going to preserve the memory about the
1945
Kuriel
года, которая
landing
стала одним
operation
из
in the
последних
August-September
сражений
1945.
Второй
It was one
мировой
of the
войны.
last battles of the Second World War.
Стало, безусловно, символом мужества наших солдат и офицеров, которые сокрушили, казалось бы, неприступные вражеские укрепления. Уважаемые коллеги, вся история российского Дальнего Востока — это просто громадного региона, занимающего почти 40% территории страны, написано целеустремленными, смелыми, сильными духом людьми. Они изучали и защищали эти земли, сохраняли традиции коренных народов, открывали новые точки на карте России, строили города, заводы, прокладывали дороги, осваивали месторождения. Наши предки, поднимавшие Дальний Восток, были преданы своему делу и нашему Отечеству. А любовь к родине помогала им ставить по-настоящему значимые, большие цели. Их героизм, самопожертвование и достижения и сегодня вдохновляют на совершение множества наших граждан, множества специалистов, врачей, учителей, работников культуры, преподавателей вузов, бизнесменов, всех, кто уже работает на Дальнем Востоке или только планирует связать с ним свою жизнь, включая управленцев региональных и муниципальных команд. С 2022 года в регионе работает программа Муравьев-Амурский для подготовки кадров на государственную службу. Ее действие расширено и на Арктику. Программа востребована. Конкурс высокий, до 80 человек на место. Молодые, амбициозные люди видят, что развитие Дальнего Востока и Арктики – одна из самых интересных и самых перспективных задач, которая стоит перед нашей страной. И мы обязательно продлим программу Муравьев-Амурский как минимум до 2030 года. Я повторю, нам вместе, органам власти всех уровней, деловому сообществу, общественным организациям, гражданам предстоит принять деятельное участие в реализации новых национальных проектов и программ, чтобы они получили широкое дальневосточное измерение, помогли сделать шаг вперед в развитии этого стратегически значимого региона России, повышение качества жизни людей. И, конечно, мы будем расширять связи российского Дальнего Востока всей нашей страны с зарубежными партнерами, друзьями, с государствами и компаниями, которые заинтересованы в надежном, долгосрочном взаимовыгодном сотрудничестве. И тем самым
mutually
будем
beneficial
продолжать
cooperation. This way
укреплять
we'll
позиции
continue
России.
strengthening the positions
Уверен,
of
что
Russia in
все
the world. And I'm sure
вместе
that
мы,
together
безусловно,
we'll
добьемся
achieve these
успеха.
goals without any
Благодарю
doubt.
вас за внимание.
Thank you for your attention.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо, Владимир Владимирович. Сейчас дам чуть попозже слово нашим уважаемым гостям. Прежде у меня пара уточняющих вопросов. Если посмотреть на данные Росстата за 2023 год, то численность Дальнего Востока в целом составляет чуть больше 7,8 миллиона человек. При этом за тот же самый период мы видим уже миграционный рост и плюс в 3 регионах – это Камчатка, Якутия и Чукотка. Мы уже отметили, что за последние 8 лет также прирост и молодежи, которые сюда приезжают. Но в целом назвать ситуацию стабильной сложно. В 2021 году, и вы об этом говорили накануне, был миграционный приток, в 2023 небольшой, но отток. В своем выступлении вы отметили, что одна из тех мер, которая позволит стимулировать людей оставаться на Дальнем Востоке, это, конечно, те мастер-планы, о которых сейчас идет речь. Вот как вы считаете, чтобы улучшить жизнь на Дальнем Востоке, что еще нужно сделать? Надолго уйти, это я понимаю, да?
I understand it could take a long time to answer this question. Definitely.
Больше, чем мы сделали до
We
сих пор,
certainly
совершенно
need to do
очевидная
more
вещь.
than we have done up until
Как
now.
минимум,
But
нужно
at
сосредоточить
least
свое внимание
we
на
need to
двух
focus
главных
our
аспектах.
attention on two major
Первое,
aspects.
нужно
First
улучшать
one,
условия
we need to
сегодня
constantly
и
improve the
создавать
environment and
интересные,
conditions of living
перспективные
here in
рабочие
the
места.
region. We need to
И
create
второе,
more workplaces. And
нужно
secondly,
делать
we
жизнь в регионе
need to
комфортной.
make sure that living in
И
this
самое
region is
главное,
comfortable and
это чтобы
pleasant. And most
у
importantly,
конкретного человека, у
we need
семьи
to make sure that every
было
single person,
понимание
every single
того, что
family
это
has a
надолго,
clear understanding that
что
this
горизонт
intention is here to
планирования
stay, that the planning horizon
большой,
is
что
long.
жизнь и
Our
работа
intentions are
здесь
serious,
создают
and by staying and
перспективы и
working
для
here in the
конкретного
region,
человека,
you
и
will
для
create great
его
prospects for
детей.
yourself and your
Очень
children.
важна перспектива.
So, seeing
В
this
целом мы
future, seeing those
заинтересованы в
prospects in the long run
прежде
is
всего молодых
crucial.
людей,
First and foremost, we're interested in the
которые будущее,
influx of
которые
younger people here
ставят
to the
перед собой
region. They are our
амбициозные
future.
цели. Нужно
We want
создать
them to
условия
set
для реализации
ambitious
этих
objectives, and we need to
амбициозных
create necessary conditions
Вот
for
это самое
implementation of those goals.
И
That's
еще
the
один
major thing.
уточняющий
And just one more
вопрос. Уже вы
question, if
отмечали,
I
что
may.
опыт Дальнего
You've already
Востока в
mentioned that the
реализации
experience of the
мастер-планов, он
Far
будет
East in
перенесен и в другие
implementation of
регионы.
master
А
plans
как
will
именно?
be scaled to other regions.
Вот я уже
How exactly
сказал,
will that
что
happen?
как бы
I've mentioned already
новизна, если
that
вообще можно назвать
a
новизной, но
certain
тем не
novelty,
менее,
if you could actually call it a
заключается в том, что
novelty,
мы должны
is that
совмещать и
we need
пространственное
to combine
развитие,
our
и
spatial
экономическое
development
развитие.
and economic
Ведь и на Дальнем
development.
Востоке, и в
Because in the
Сибири,
Far
и у
East
нас
and in Siberia,
еще в советское время как
well, back in the
строилась работа?
Soviet times,
Строили
how was
предприятия, а
the
рядом бараки.
process structured?
Вот и
A factory would be
все
built,
недолго,
an
что
enterprise, and
Градообразующие
some very
предприятия.
simple housing nearby.
так
This is how
называется
small
до сих пор
towns would emerge.
градообразующие
There would be just
предприятия
one big
строятся, а
enterprise,
рядом
and around this
что-то
enterprise,
лепили, где
some
люди
kind of
могли
a
бы жить.
small, hectic
Кстати,
town would come
ИБАМ
up
также
where people would
осваивался.
live. This is the way
И
how Baikal
очень
Amur
многие
mainland would be built, and many other enterprises
так,
were
и
evolving
регионы
in
так
this particular
развивались.
manner. Many
Предприятия, а рядом
regions were being
что-то, где
shaped by
могли бы
those
жить люди.
enterprises.
А
Then
уже
the
потом,
enterprise comes first, then
когда
some
люди
housing was
начинали
built
жить в
for
таких
people
условиях,
around it, and
думали,
gradually,
а
as
что
the
же
story
сделать
would evolve, they
дополнительно
would
для
think
того,
what can
чтобы
be done
эта жизнь
additionally
была
so that life of those people is actually a proper human life that is
разница в
comfortable and
сегодняшнем
pleasant.
подходе, который
Well,
мы
the
предлагаем,
difference to the
заключается
approach
в том,
that we have for
что нужно
today
делать параллельно
is
и то,
that
и другое.
both
Вот как мы
objectives have to be
начинаем
pursued in
какой-то объект
parallel.
возводить,
As soon as
сразу
we
же нужно
start
думать о том,
constructing a
как и где
major
будут жить
enterprise
люди,
or a
чем они
factory,
будут
we need
заниматься.
to think straight away
Значит,
where the people would
что
live,
в области
what would be
образования,
their
культуры,
careers,
медицинского
what we can offer to them in
должно
terms
быть
of
сделано.
culture,
И сразу
education,
реализовывать эти
medical
проекты.
services,
В
and
некоторых,
those projects have to be launched straight
сейчас
away in
не
parallel.
буду, значит, даже называть,
I'm
хотел
not even
назвать,
going to
но
name them. I
воздержусь,
wanted to do
потому
that
что
first,
наверняка
but
не
I
все
decided
сделано,
not to,
как,
because I'm sure not all of it is most
хочется,
probably
поэтому сейчас
completed
что-нибудь
exactly in the
скажу,
manner we
ага,
expected to.
нет, а вот
I
у
don't
вас
want to
там
say something and then you would
недоделано,
catch
там
me by the word and say, well,
Это
this
так,
project is not
значит,
actually
что-то может
finished.
недоделано,
That
но
is true, that may
принцип
be the
в этом
case.
заключается.
But
Идти
the major
сразу
principle
параллельно
is exactly as I
создание
stated, to
инфраструктуры
do this work in
для
parallel,
жизни
work
и
in
развития
parallel on
производства
creation of the
и экономики
infrastructure
в
for
широком
people
смысле этого
and
слова.
development of industry and
Спасибо.
economy in the broadest
Сейчас, как
meaning.
обещала,
Thank you. And now,
предоставляю
as
слово
promised, I
нашим
would like to give
уважаемым
the floor to our
гостям.
distinguished guests. I apologize. I'm very sorry for interrupting.
населенных пункта.
As I mentioned, there are 22 residential locations that we try to develop right now according to those principles. And generally, in the nearest years, we are going to focus on more than 200 locations all around the country. Thank you. And now it is my honor to give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Malaysia, Your Excellency Mr. Ibrahim. Please proceed.
Здравствуйте. President Vladimir Putin, Vice President of China, Han Zheng, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to President Vladimir Putin for inviting me to this preeminent and momentous forum here in Vladivostok. It is also momentous for me on a personal level because, believe it or not, this is my very first visit to Russia. More than 50 years ago, when I was still an active youth leader, I flew Aeroflot and transited Moscow airport on my way to Belgium for the International Youth Conference. We were not allowed to disembark, only to the transit hotel. So I never got the chance to set foot on Russian soil. And it's real pleasure here to be finally in Vladivostok, where history blends seamlessly with progress and where the vastness of Russia meets the boundless promise of Asia Pacific. As a crossroads of commerce, this city has been shaped by diverse influences, reflecting a rich heritage of Russian and East Asian traditions, making Vladivostok a concert of cultures. Beyond its economic significance, Vladivostok holds a distinctive place in Russian history as a vital seaport and the eastern terminus of the legendary Trans-Siberian Railway. This city truly embodies Russia's connection with the East. Here we find a powerful symbol of our gathering, a convergence of geography, ideas, aspirations, and futures. Since its inception in 2015, the Eastern Economic Forum has consistently drawn visionaries and leaders from around the world. This is fitting, as Northeast Asia, which includes the Russian Far East, is a region of vibrant economic dynamism and immense potential. Indeed, it contributes about a fifth of the world's GDP. I would therefore like to thank President Putin for his vision and leadership in establishing this forum, which continues to foster meaningful dialogue and collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is not just a strategic and economic reality that commands attention. Indeed, as a cultural, intellectual, and scientific force, Russia's prominence on the global stage transcends the confines of commerce and geopolitics, reaching deep into the very fabric of human history and thought. Russia's preeminence stems not from military might or economic leverage, crucial as that may be, but from the enduring power of ideas, the beauty of artistic expression, and an unwavering pursuit of knowledge. These achievements form the bedrock of the remarkable soft power, earning Russia a place of global respect and admiration, influencing the hearts and minds of people around the world. For me personally, this influence is most powerfully felt in literature. I see this with earnest conviction because having drunk deeply from the wellsprings of English and Malay literature in my early education, and then later having immersed in the works of Dante, Shakespeare, and Milton, I do believe that life would be so much poorer without literature, particularly Russian literature. In this regard, I can't sing enough praises for the great Russian authors and poets who have explored the profound complexities of life, unparalleled insight, and whose works have had a lasting impact on my understanding of society and human condition. For instance, the works of Fyodor Dostoevsky and Leo Tolstoy, just to name a few, delve into the moral and philosophical dilemmas that define what it means to be human. While Dostoevsky challenges us to engage with the intricacies of faith, doubt, and the human soul, Tolstoy invites us to reflect on the nature of power, responsibility, and the passage of time. Transcending the literary significance, the appreciation of Russian literature manifests the depth of this great nation's impact on global thought and its capacity to inform our understanding of our own ideas, roles within the border currents of history. Furthermore, the appeal and power of Russian literature extends beyond its philosophical underpinnings. Writers like Chekhov, Pushkin, Pasternak, and also my favorite Tsarina Anna Akhmatova have brought to life the joys, sorrows, and struggles of everyday existence with a realism that has resonated with me deeply. Ladies and gentlemen, in its pivotal role in advancing human knowledge through science and technology, Russia has consistently pushed the boundaries of possibility, from pioneering efforts in space exploration to groundbreaking work in nuclear physics and cybernetics. And you have heard yourself the vision and the plan expounded by President, which covers a comprehensive area, which is developmental as much as it is human. These contributions reflect a deep-seated commitment to understanding and mastering the natural world, underscoring Russia's importance in the collective progress of humanity. We are witnessing a troubling trend of protectionism that threatens to fragment the global economy. The rise of tariffs, trade barriers, and restrictions on technological exchange constitute troubling developments. In this regard, the rise of the global south does not signify merely a shift of economic power, but a reconfiguration of global influence, encompassing countries across Asia, China, India, Africa, and Latin America. The global south is on a trajectory to play a pivotal role in reshaping the future of the world economy. According to recent estimates, the global south now accounts for roughly 40% of the world's economic output and is home to about 85% of the global population. By 2030, it is projected that 3 of the 4 largest economies will be from the global south. This rise is a reality that presents both challenges and opportunities. For Malaysia, it is essential that we build strong ties to share the growth and to contribute to a more balanced global order. Like Russia, we see the potential of these developing economies, and we are committed to fostering partnership that can drive mutual prosperity. In this vein, Malaysia is actively pursuing opportunities within the global south and joining fellow nations that seek to create a new paradigm of development, one that is more inclusive, equitable, sustainable, and resilient. In a world of increasing complexity, our future prosperity depends on our ability to adapt, innovate, and build relationships that cut across traditional boundaries. The global south is rising, and Malaysia intends to rise with it. Being an open economy, Malaysia prides itself on doing business with the entire world, and we have benefited greatly from being a vital node in globalized supply chains. Central to this effort is the Madani economic framework, which has implemented structural reform initiatives to trailblaze a more sustainable, inclusive future path for our nation. In Malaysia-Russia bilateral relations, one area ripe for collaboration includes Islamic finance, where Malaysia is regarded as a global leader, boasting a robust ecosystem of institutions that not only adhere to Sharia principles, but also drive innovation in financial investments. Russia, with its sizable Muslim population, stands at the threshold of enormous potential in Islamic finance, and I believe the introduction of Islamic banking in Russia can facilitate joint projects and attract significant investments from Muslim-majority nations. In agriculture, Russia has made remarkable strides, becoming a significant global player in this sector. As one of the world's largest grain producers and exporters, Russia plays a crucial role in ensuring global food security. Russia's agricultural exports has been instrumental in stabilizing global markets amid ongoing supply chain disruptions. Turning to education and research, Russia has a long-standing reputation for excellence, particularly in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Fields Russian universities have consistently ranked among the best globally, producing world-class scientists, engineers, and researchers. The recent establishment of the Russian-Malaysian High-Tech Center in Malaysia underscores our commitment to fostering technological innovation and academic excellence. In facilitating cooperation in developing high-tech solutions, particularly in energy efficiency, data transmission, and smart city technologies, we can harness our collective strength to drive innovation and address the challenges of the 21st century. Additionally, the strive for cutting-edge advancements such as AI and semiconductor technologies should be guided by humanistic and altruistic values to ensure that tech rivalry and inequity do not result in the hindrance of free trade in a more fragmented geopolitical landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, as upcoming ASEAN chair, Malaysia will not only focus on strengthening existing ASEAN mechanisms and institutions, but also find synergies with other regions and key dialogue partners to foster development and prosperity. In forging ahead with this approach, of utmost priority will be the need to reinforce the paramount principles of ASEAN centrality, which constitutes the linchpin for consensus building that in turn binds member states in cohesiveness action. We will intensify engagement with other sub-regions and leveraging ties with our strategic partners, including Russia. In light of this, in applying to join BRICS, Malaysia aims to diversify our economic diplomacy efforts and enhance collaboration. I would like to take a moment to express my profound thanks and gratitude to President Putin for his gracious invitation for me to attend the forthcoming BRICS Summit in Kazan in October. We are entering an era marked by intense superpower rivalry, significant global economic upheavals, as well as trade and technology as tools to consolidate power bases against the growing existential threat of climate change. Together, we should continue to cooperate, speak in a unified voice, and exchange ideas and strategy to best policy practices to build a future of even greater peace and prosperity in Asia and the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we chart the path forward together, let us remember that the true strength of our partnership lies not only in the agreement we sign or the projects that we jointly undertake, but in the shared vision and mutual respect that bind our nation. Большое спасибо. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Господин Ибрагим.
Mr. Ibrahim.
Во-первых, поздравляю с тем, что вы добрались до нас, наконец-таки. Очень хочется поговорить о загадочной русской душе и философии, которую вы затронули в своей речи, но придется насущным, о БРИКС, о нем вы тоже говорили. Малайзия хочет присоединиться к объединению. В чем конкретно?
What are the benefits of joining BRICS for Malaysia?
Well, we are part of the globalized world. We believe in continuing our trade relationship with all. We have traditionally, cumulatively, very strong investments and trade with the United States and Europe. We are building a greater collaboration with China, which has become a stronger bond together, and China remains one of our major and key partners. Russia has been traditionally a good country that we work well diplomatically. But as I said to President Putin last night, there is vast opportunities. Russia has seen its resilience, its capacity to expand in all sectors. Now, being in BRICS would allow us to benefit and share. Malaysia now is this hub for semiconductor in the region. There are some fields that we can share, but there are a lot of other areas we can. But I think the Global South network of BRICS would give us an opportunity to leverage, to ensure that there is a fair trade practices, that the international financial infrastructure is not monopolized by one country or one region. And then essentially it will be beneficial not only to Malaysia, but I think to the global south and naturally to the whole world. Thank you.
Спасибо. Vladimir Vladimirovich,
when you were talking about the BRICS summit, what are you awaiting from the BRICS summit in Kazan? And in accordance with the results of 2023, $294 million is the trade turnover, $1 billion is the trade turnover of BRICS. How do you assess the possible future developments and de-dollarization? Is this a sign of the present? Well, above all, we are not conducting the policy of de-dollarization. We continue to conduct settlements in dollars. We were kicked out from dollar settlements. But this is not the main point. The main point is that the currency of any particular country reflects the economic power of the country. And the bigger the economy, the more partners it has, the more popular is the currency for trade settlements. Well, it's it's natural that when you have a lot of partners, economic partners, you use different types of currencies in settlements. So using currencies for settlements depends on the development of the economy. After the Second World War, the United States used the opportunity of the results of the Second World War in the world economy, conducting the Marshall Plan, creating one global Bretton Woods system, which had been reconstructed and have created a single world currency, the dollar. And it all depended and continues to depend on the power, on the capacity of economic growth and the economy of the country. Prime Minister of Malaysia has just mentioned that trends, there is a shift of development of the economy on a global scale. Global South accounts for more than 50% of GDP. World GDP. Well, the BRICS countries occupy 1/3 in the global economy and account for 1/3 of the global economy. So naturally, as far as the usage of different currencies is concerned, I'd like to say that with our partners in BRICS, the usage of national currency accounts for more than 65% of trade operations, which is quite naturally. Well, the political forces of the United States have been deploying non-professional methods and, in a way, moving us toward that decision. They probably understand the mistakes they have made, but it's far too late for them to turn back. They think and they see that something should be corrected, should be altered, because the instruments they've been using are not working. We are using our national currencies in trade operations, but it's difficult to change the situation now, because in changing anything, they would have to accept making mistakes. So they've been calculating in such a way that we would be destructed, which hadn't happened, but the tendencies are obvious, and the tendencies of development on the global scale are actually moving us towards using national currencies in settlements today. As of today, Chinese economy the parity of buying capacity is more than half of the world buying capacity. So the volume of buying capacity and the parity of buying capacity is larger. The U.S. occupies the second place in the world, but China is growing, and the Chinese currency is used for trade and by trade partners in settlements. And currently, it's Russia is in the third place. We have taken over Germany in this case, and we have taken over Japan. It's true that Japan and Germany have a lot of beneficial trends of development as they are operating in high-tech spheres, but the volumes in our country are higher because we have more opportunity to invest into prospective areas of development. And this is not connected only with political conjuncture. You see, the Europeans and the Americans have made such steps that are moving forward the development of national currencies. As for the development of ties between between BRICS countries. They are growing, they are strengthening. In 2005, we formed BRICS. Russia and China were then joined by Brazil. Now we have expanded the number of members. More than 30 countries of the world are ready to cooperate and work within the BRICS, and some of them are ready to join BRICS. The countries boast highly developed economies with rich culture, and they will improve the development of this organization. Thank you.
И сейчас обращусь к еще одному участнику
I would like to turn to one other member of BRICS. I would like to give the floor to Vice President of the People's Chinese Republic, Mr. Han Zheng. Welcome. Esteemed President Putin, esteemed Prime Minister Mr. Anwar, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, hello. I'm very glad to take part in the 9th Eastern Economic Forum. Allow me, on behalf of the President Xi Jinping, to congratulate you with the beginning of the work of this forum. Vladivostok is a window to the world for the Far East and Eastern countries. And thanks to President Putin, Vladivostok organized the first Eastern Economic Forum 9 years ago. This is a very important foundation for the development of cooperation between Eastern countries. The main topic for our future discussion and development is the development of the Far East and its key role in the development of the Eastern area and the Eastern region. Our main aim is development of cooperation, mutual trust, and mutually beneficial ties. Under the strategic chairmanship of the President of China and the President of Russia, we have been developing the relations between China and Russia in the new era. This year, the presidents have met in Peking and Astana and have drawn up plans for multilateral development of ties between the countries to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Russia and China. We will overcome all the difficulties following this path, and on this path, solving and resolving the burning issues for our countries and developing mutually beneficial ties in the economy and developing the economy. The Far East and China are geographically close, and they have a lot of benefits in the development of trade and investment, energy and transportation connectivity. Being natural partners, China has been the largest strategic trade partner for the Far East. The trade turnover between Far East and China in 2023 was $33.8 billion. US dollars having grown by 54%. Currently, in the northeast of China, we are cultivating the openness of China in connection with the development of ties with the Far East and Russia. The cooperation of Far East and northeast of China is one of the most important issues, and we must point out the successful 8th Russian-Chinese Expo conducted in Harbin. President Putin took part in the opening of this exhibition, and this was laying the foundation for future development of cooperation and ties between our countries. We are ready, together with the Russian government, to be guided by the treaties and agreements on the development of trans-border structures and infrastructures to grow the scale and the quality of our relationship and cooperation and continue the long-term development of Chinese and Russian relations, to make a contribution into the prosperity and development of the region. On the basis of the changes which have taken place on the international arena, and our hopes towards peace and peaceful coexistence are becoming the main trend. The initiatives on global security and global initiatives of the development of civilization, which were put forward by President Xi Jinping, have become the main trends for the development and given impulse for the development of mutually beneficial ties and development of our countries. We are ready to consolidate our efforts in bringing peace and prosperity to the region and the world. In connection with that, I would like to propose the following. Firstly, to adhere to the principles of openness and inclusivity, to cooperate in the sphere of different trade and cultural ties, and to focus towards mutually beneficial ties and mutual benefits, to counter protectionism and counter unilateral sanctions and pressure on countries. We are ready to strengthen fraternity and on the basis of principles of openness and mutual respect in continuation of mutual development, to foster mutually beneficial cooperation is important in order to achieve high results in the development of Southeastern Asia and for the prospective development of the region as a whole. We're working to find new points of mutually beneficial ties and stable seamless supply chains in such new areas as artificial intelligence, green economy. For the future development of our countries. The third point is to provide for comprehensive security in the region. Security is the foundation of safety. Safety is the result of strengthened security, and the world is developing on a global scale. We need to combat the mentality of Cold War and the usage of double standards. Peace and stability, which are the prerogatives of Northeast Asia is our main aim. We are ready to strengthen our ties and friendship in order to provide for the security of the whole region and on a global scale. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, the third plenary session of the Communist Party of China has taken place not so long ago, and Chinese modernization follows along the lines and plans for its future development on a high level of openness, strengthening of ties, opening up the region for peaceful coexistence between countries. We are ready to develop modernization and on the basis of mutually beneficial cooperation between countries and on the basis of flourishing economy on a global scale. I would like to wish you fruitful work at the forum. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot.
Спасибо заместителю председателя КНР. Это был Хан Зheng. Владимир Владимирович, конечно, я не могу обойти стороной ту актуальную новостную повестку, которая сегодня есть, и она зачастую не касается, конечно, Дальнего Востока, развития нашего взаимодействия с АТР. Уже чуть больше месяца ВСУ наносят удары по приграничным территориям Российской Федерации, строят сразу несколько субъектов. Как вы в целом сегодня оцениваете ситуацию как в зоне СВО на разных фронтах, так и в приграничье? И сегодня насколько велика угроза ядерной опасности, учитывая, что ВСУ бьют также по Курску и
What are the perils taken into consideration that the strikes are against the NPPs? When we talk about these things, we should think, first of all, about humans who are suffering from these acts of terror, and the sacred obligation of the armed forces is to thwart the enemy from these areas and to protect the citizens. And the whole of the country should do their utmost to give support to the people. And the goal of the enemy was to force us, getting jittery and moving the troops from one sector of the front to another and stop our advance at the key front areas in Donbass, first of all. And the advancement in these areas is our ultimate goal. Did they succeed? Nope, they didn't manage to succeed. Our armed forces stabilized the situation and started forcing the enemy out. And the second, which is most important, no actions to contain our advance took place. More than that, relocating their large and well-trained reserves, the enemy got weaker at the key fibers, and our troops accelerated our offensive, and we gained a lot of territory. The east grouping has acquired an area of 5x7, and the center grouping is very proactive in Donetsk area, and they seized the square kilometers of territory like 4x5, 3x5 kilometers, etc. And then another thing which is important, there are heavy losses for the enemy, both in manpower and material. I won't be throwing any figures to you. The information is available in the Ministry of Defense, and the figures of the losses are confirmed by a number of these sources. And as a result, it could result in the collapse of the front line in some areas, and the combat capacity of the Ukrainian armed forces could be lost. That's what our ultimate goal is. That's the general estimate of what is happening, and of course the General Staff and the Minister of Defense report the situation to me several times a day. You have mentioned already that people are the most important thing and they are being protected. While in the Vladivostok, you have mentioned, you have also asked about the strikes against NPPs in Kursk and Zaporozhye. These are very hazardous and dangerous acts of terror. You can just imagine what will happen if our retaliation is just the same. You have visited the base of Flotilla and you had a discussion of the sea commanding officer of 155th Brigade of the Marines, and you had the discussion with the CEO, and one of the issues discussed was providing residential quarters to the personnel. And it's a contradiction, isn't it? And not quite. And the brigade commander of 155 did not have been talking about householding the things, but actually it was me who has been looking for the place to build residential quarters, and I'm sure that it is necessary to implement the construction plans in time, and they will be fulfilled. And of course, the other commanding officers have raised different issues about the well-being of the soldiers, and I have been talking with the CEO of 118th Brigade and of the Pacific Fleet, and of course there are some requirements for the residential quarters for the personnel of the boys who are fighting over there, and they are doing their duty in a heroic manner. And by the way, one of the tasks of the enemy when they made an incursion into the Russian territory was to stir up panic, but what did it result in? It resulted in the consolidation of the society. That's what always is happening in Russia. It is signified by the fact that the number of the men who are signing contracts with the armed forces has grown. Another thing, as far as social welfare of the servicemen is concerned, the country should take care of it. And the CEO of the 110th Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet stated that the authorities over there are prepared to allocate land, and if the land plots of the belonging owned by the Ministry of Defense are not enough. So I had a discussion, the necessary resources will be allocated. You have mentioned that Kiev might start negotiations with Russia if there is a failure of their offensive in Kursk region. I have mentioned it already that we have already coordinated all the parameters of peaceful cooperation with the representative of Kiev. That was reached. We have come to terms about everything. More than that, the head of the delegation of the Ukraine, and who is still the head of the ruling fraction of the party in the Ukrainian parliament, has endorsed those agreements. It was necessary to iron up some subtleties, but still he has his endorsement. And then Mr. Boris Johnson of the UK came and he instructed the Ukraine to fight till the death of the very last Ukrainian. That's what's happening now, trying to achieve strategic loss of Russia. But that's not happening, and that the authorities of the Ukraine have stated that had they been implementing what was agreed on, the war could have happened a long time ago, had they not been listening to the instructions from the third parties. We have never refused to talk with them, but not on some wishful thinking ideas, but based on the documents that have been already agreed on and endorsed between the two parties. And is there any understanding of what country could be a mediator if the further negotiations occur? We respect our friends and partners who I think are sincerely interested in addressing all the issues and resolve all the issues associated with this conflict. First of all, it is Chinese People's Republic, Brazil, India. I'm in contact with my partners, and I have no doubt that the leaders of these countries, and we have the relations of trust and confidence with one another, will be really interested and provide a helping hand. And the whole trouble started with the coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014. They keep telling us about the human rights and about the principles of the rules of law. But what was the coup d'etat then? It was a bloody coup d'etat which resulted in a part of the population of the Ukraine not agreeing with what had happened. They started fighting for their right, and it resulted in the ongoing conflict. But the other parties try not to recollect, to think about it and to remember it, but we are aware about it, and we will be protecting the interests of the people who are close to us and who are Russian speakers and who are the bearers of the Russian culture that Mr. Anwar Ibrahim has been talking at length about today.
Владимир Владимирович, мы все прекрасно понимаем, что в целом, и вы это сейчас отметили, переговоры возможны не напрямую с Киевом, а с его западными кураторами. Но при этом в случае переговоров, как вы считаете, можно ли все-таки будет в дальнейшем верить? Ведь если посмотреть даже на исторические факты, Россия оказывалась обманута, наверное, может, не единожды. И вопросы расширения НАТО на восток, и Минское соглашение нарушали не мы же.
Russia has been deceived because it refers to the advancement of NATO to the east. Is there understanding how to deal with them now? We understand who we are dealing with, and these are the parties and the people who disregard the opinion of the others and then do not stand on their word, and they violate the signed agreements, the legally binding documents, but we should look for such guarantees and assurances that could be working. But the most important guarantee and assurance of security is the growth of Russia's economy and military potential of the Russian Federation and reliable and stable relations with our partners and allies. Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, we have discussed it now with President Putin that Russia has been trying to find a peaceful solution. And why do you think the negotiations in Istanbul were a failure and the negotiations failed?
Well, I mentioned to President Putin last night that I happened to be on a visit to Istanbul, and President Erdogan asked me to extend for a day because he was busy monitoring the development of the progress of the negotiations. And naturally I knew and I thought at that time that the issue will be over because apparently both parties have agreed the principles and the parameters. So I think I am of course of the view that you must secure peace, and it will help immensely not only with these two countries but the entire world, because it is disrupting the global chain supplies and etc. But you must start from somewhere, and as I understand, the parameters laid down in Istanbul was probably the basis for that understanding, and you work from there. And I think both sides have agreed, and I think President Putin is right. We support the initiative, but we must begin somewhere with the parameters that is fair and just. And one cannot renege on the commitment on these issues. And I think most countries should then implore that some basis, particularly that was agreed upon, must be honored, and so that we can secure peace as soon as possible.
Александр, извините. Да, вы сказали о том, что нам не удалось договориться в
You have mentioned that we have not agreed with the help of President Erdogan, but we did manage to come to terms, to agree, and the document has been endorsed by the Ukraine. It means that on the whole, these agreements and the terms and conditions of the contract satisfy the Ukraine. And the only reason it was not implemented because they have been instructed and lectured not to live by the contract. And the ambition of the West was to reach a strategic loss, strategic defeat for Russia, to break it into pieces. And they believe that here is the manna from the heaven, and they will manage to achieve the strategic goals that they have been striving to achieve for centuries. Boris Johnson came and he said, no, keep fighting, and that's why they're still fighting. I was under the impression that those that are the leaders of the Ukraine are aliens or foreigners for their own countries. They do not think about the destiny of their own country because such heavy losses. I don't know what they will be doing in the future. It is necessary now for them to bring down the age bracket for the drafting people and doing what they did in Nazi Germany, Hitler, Jugend, but that will not help. Next step will be to draft students, and it will bleed the country. And I'm just under the impression that it's not their peoples, but the relatives of the leading elite live abroad, they hop abroad, and that's it. So they're just covered, and they proclaim the nationalistic slogans and fooling the populations. But once again, I would like to state that if there is a desire of the Ukraine to carry on with the negotiations, I can do that, but based on the agreements that were achieved in Istanbul.
Господин Ибрагим, есть
And
такое понятие, как
another
малазийское
subject
экономическое
matter,
чудо.
there is
Оно
such a
стало
notion
возможным
as
благодаря тем особым
Malaysian
экономическим зонам,
economic
которые вы создали.
miracle,
Расскажите,
thanks to
какие
the
условия для
economic
ведения
zones
бизнеса
that you
и
have set up.
российские компании?
What are the
Вы ждете
conditions
сюда?
for business, and are Russian companies welcome there?
Well, I met a number of leading Russian companies yesterday and even this morning. We, as a policy, do not regard, as Vice President of China had mentioned, we do not accept unilateral sanctions, but we are, of course, trying to resolve that so that we are not seen to be confronting any power or economic power in particular. So we focus on economic zones in the country, and Russian companies, I've told them, we are an independent country, the centrality. We want to be engaging with Russia more effectively, and I was extremely delighted that many of them are coming. When I asked them, when are you coming? They said, we're planning. Some are saying, we will go next week, and a group will come in October. So there is interesting progress in interest, because of course we are fortunate because of the situation and our relations more so with China these days, that we have, for example, growth registered in the last quarter 5.9%, with inflation at 2%, with huge investments also from the United States, particularly in the digital and energy sector, and Germany in particular. So I think we will do whatever is necessary. We can learn from the comprehensive plan package that President Putin mentioned, and there is enormous potential. I mean, the Russians should not in any way feel that we are influenced by others or prejudiced against others. There is this potential and this special relationship that Malaysia wants to offer to Russia as a friend of ours.
Спасибо. Владимир Владимирович, если говорить про наши специальные режимы, которые есть на Дальнем Востоке, это свободный порт Владивостока и территория передвижения развития, вот как вы считаете, насколько они конкурентоспособны по сравнению с другими подобными режимами в странах АТР? И вы довольны показателями, которые они
preferential regime in the APEC countries? Are you satisfied with what is happening in the Russia Far East? We are happy to create a competitive environment and conditions over here. I will not go through the list, and many sitting in this conference hall are aware of what these measures are. It is the advanced development programs and free zones, free port of Vladivostok. There are many incentives provided to the business. When I start talking at the governmental meetings, the Prime Minister is just getting nervous because he believes that we would like to give even more preferences. He said that's enough, there are so many. The Deputy Premier of Chinese People's Republic just referred to the Economic Forum in Harbin, and he was over there. He was sent to Harbin by Mr. Xi Jinping, our great friend, and I'm thanking to the Deputy Premier for the work that took place over there. It was very interesting, and something that I would like to say, I think it was unexpected for both our guests and our audience. Will you spill the beans? Yes, it will be also unexpected for Premier and for Mr. Herman of Sberbank as well. No, they're okay. They will be able to stomach it. But that's what I would like to say. I have been talking with the representative of our diplomatic office in Harbin, and I asked him what is necessary to do for Chinese investors to come to the Far East. And he said the Chinese authorities do not restrain their investors. Anyone who can go over there can invest. But the conditions that are created in Harbin are more favorable than we have in the Far East. That's what it is.
So the Chinese authorities have been working on special economic zones. They have been putting in place conditions for economic development, so we have to have a closer look at the benefits and preferences that the Chinese authorities are setting up in their territories, including in the border regions, so as to attract businesses from other countries, in particular from the friendly nation of China, to make them come and invest. We have to analyze all of that, and maybe we could complement some of these tools and instruments with some novelties, with innovative solutions, to make sure that there is an interest on the part of investors and business circles. Yes, we are creating a favorable environment, but there's still some work to be done. That's what I wanted to say. Vice President Han Zheng, I would like to ask you, what are you doing to make sure that the Chinese businesses stay in China instead of coming to Russia? How do you... Why are you asking such provocative questions? Well, because it's a provocative question. Yes, we've got to attract them to Russia, to come here. From the outset, I would like to say that the Chinese government has always been supporting Chinese investment abroad, in particular to Russia and to the Russian Far East. President Putin has mentioned China's cooperation with the Russian Far East. President Putin has broached this subject, and we discussed this subject when we were in Harbin, and we've got to have a look at this question at both sides. On the one hand, China and the Russian Far East are engaged in a very close, high-level cooperation. We've got a very solid foundation for such cooperation. And we've got some tangible outcomes of this cooperation. As far as I'm aware, over the first 7 months of this year, in cooperation between the Russian Far East and the north east of China, the trade has exceeded $60 billion. And that accounts for about 40% of the total trade between our two countries. So the trend is very positive, very dynamic. On the other hand, we have to look into the future. First of all, we've got to preserve this positive trend. In the trade between the two countries, the foundation for cooperation is very solid. The Russian Far East has a huge potential in terms of logistics, transportation, energy, agriculture, and mining. So we've got a very wide gamut of avenues of cooperation to be pursued, and we've got to preserve this strength, but this is not enough yet. We've got to look into the future, and we've got to expand our cooperation to other industries. I refer in particular to green development, digital economy, and probably maritime industries. And of course, culture needs to be covered as well as art. There's a very big potential in these fields. Let me share with you one experience of mine, an adventure as it were. At President Putin's invitation today, this morning, I visited two branches of Russian universities here. One of them is the Conservatoire branch in Primorsky Krai. And you know, this trip has left an indelible impression. I've looked at these facilities, I've looked at the buildings, I saw students and school children, you know, from the third year of the university. They were performing admirably, playing some classical music, dancing in the ballet, the Swan Lake namely, and I was deeply impressed. And I said, yes, we've got a very good level of cooperation between our two countries in these fields. And I'm happy to see that each year there is a very big flow of Chinese students coming to Russia to study arts. As far as I know, from Heilongjiang province, 40 students have arrived as of now to Russia. So there is a very big mutual interest between these two regions in deepening their ties and cooperation, and the Chinese government has always been supportive of all businesses and companies, be that public-owned or private ones, supporting their investment into Russia's economy and the economy of the Russian Far East in particular. So they've got very wide cooperation opportunities.
Господин Ибрагим, ну у нас уже здесь два секрета раскрыты.
Two secrets have been revealed. We've got to learn the third secret from you. Is Malaysian business interested in coming to the advanced development territories and the free port of Vladivostok to work in a full-fledged manner here?
For the region, it was something new to us. This is my first visit, and a number of discussions have taken place. But Russia as a whole, of course, has been given enough attention. There's been growing trade and investments jointly in, of course, energy sector, in, industrial complex, and also in digital technology. We're sending more students to Russia, and of course this can be explored specifically. We're not as powerful as China. We're trying to be. It will take time. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank you,
Владимир Владимирович,
Mr. President.
зал, приятно, что на самом деле есть какая-то реакция, когда мы слышим аплодисменты, понимаем, значит, что все идет верно. Владимир Владимирович, если посмотреть на данные, которые представил Минморского развития, за последние 10 лет на Дальнем Востоке инвестиции составили уже 4 триллиона и 200 миллиардов рублей. Это вложенные средства. Это много или мало? И как вы считаете, вот те темпы инвестирования, которые есть, сохранятся ли они, учитывая, что накануне Юрий Петрович просил вас поднять цель в 12 триллионов к 30 году?
Mr. Trutnev has asked you to raise the goal, the benchmark to 12 trillion by 2030. I think it's a big sum, but not enough yet, not sufficient. Mr. Trutnev has made his traditional report on what has been achieved. Over the previous year, we, as a tradition, have also participated in the launch of new companies, new facilities, and there is a view according to which this investment can be boosted to at least 12 trillion rubles, so by another 1.5 trillion, and I think this is a realistic goal. Thank you. Mr. President, let's get back to the recent developments. At the end of August, Pavel Durov, CEO of Telegram, was detained in Paris. He was later left under judicial surveillance, and he had to post bail. So why did Moscow not do what Paris has done? And you know, there's been a lot of talk that you had a meeting in Baku. Is that true or not? I met Mr. Durov once in Moscow. That was a long time ago, many years ago. He spoke to me about his plans. You know, I've got regular meetings with business circles, and he attended one of the meetings that took place in the Kremlin in Moscow. I do not remember when exactly. It was many years ago. He spoke about his plans for his future businesses. Since that time, we've not had any contacts. So why meet in Baku? I do not know why I would have done that. Moreover, I was not aware that he was in Baku. Well, if there is an interest, you know, there are many business people here. I often attend and organize meetings with businesses. We meet as part of association of entrepreneurs, or I meet with businesses individually, especially if businesses need some guarantees or assurances from the government. Both myself and the chairman of the government and the federal ministers are always willing to do that. This is what I've always had in mind. We do not try to erect any war between ourselves and the business. So if he wanted to meet us, then he could have done it. But I didn't know that, and I thought he lived in Moscow. No, he doesn't live in Moscow. He lives in Dubai. Well, people of the world, billionaires, they can afford to live wherever they please. We do not have any grievances with him, but I know there are many grievances on the part of many countries, given the fact that this platform is, to a certain extent, used by different people, different organizations whose activities could prove to be deleterious, either to the economy or to the security of any particular country. And I think the government of Russia could have some questions to address to him, but you know, this is the problem with any platform of this type. If they're treating Durov like that, maybe they should detain others as well, put them on house arrest. So the actions of the authorities, this is something I do not understand, because I mean the authorities of France, because they are very selective. Okay, thank you.
По итогам прошлого года ваша страна приняла рекордное число российских туристов. Это 110 тысяч человек. Показатель выроста за год на 37%, и это явно не предел. Для того, чтобы цифра росла, планирует ли малазийская авиакомпания запускать прямые рейсы из России на курорты страны?
Yes, of course. We should not preclude Aeroflot going to Malaysia. Firstly, we have been seen and more attractive to Russian tourists. You know, there's a huge increase in a year. And I think the issue of flight is one consideration. We say to have agreed in principle. We are working on it as fast as possible. And then, of course, to introduce Malaysia to Russian public. And I think they would, once they get to know the country, is peaceful, is economically vibrant, and a very beautiful country. I mean, I don't want to compete with Russia or China, but at least what we have in Malaysia, you don't have in Russia. But what you have in Russia, we don't have in Malaysia. So it is important for both countries to increase the passage of tourists, because they will see things that they have not seen in their countries. And I really hope that there is that potential for Russians to come, and we do encourage. I mean, Malaysia is a friendly nation, no prejudice. We are not dictated by any power, and we want to have that sort of special relations with Russia as we have with many countries. I think once you go there, you will find out that Malaysia is truly Asia.
Господин Ибрагим, ну что посмотреть в России? Я думаю, что мы можем сказать. А что же тогда тем российским туристам, кто едет в Малайзию смотреть? Вот что же та самая настоящая Азия, по вашему мнению?
What should they see in Malaysia? What is the essence of Asia?
Well, culturally vibrant, the multiracial society. We have a strong ethnic, indigenous, and also Malay population. We have a large number of Chinese ethnic minorities and Indians and indigenous tribes. We have a range of what is called virgin jungles. You have beautiful beaches and this equatorial climate is we don't have winters, so you can have your swim throughout the year. And that's, of course, to my mind, an advantage. I always have difficulty in travel because you always ask the question, is it going to be winter, is it going to be summer, is it hot, is it winter? So you have to change dress. In Malaysia, you can come comfortably as long as you wear something and you are fine.
В зале стало, кстати, больше улыбающихся лиц на этой фразе, что всегда в Малайзии хорошо и тепло.
Well, everyone is smiling when you said that it's warm and nice in Malaysia. Well, I've been to Malaysia and I can confirm everything Prime Minister has just said.
Владимир Владимирович, ну говоря про туризм, и вы много бываете в российских регионах, при этом развивается и внутренний в целом туризм в нашей стране. По данным правительства, путешествия по России в 2023 году выбрали 83,5 миллиона россиян. Это больше на 23%, чем в 2021. При этом, кстати, ДФО лидеров сюда приезжают, на самом деле, очень много. Более 6 миллионов человек в прошлом году были. В целом, какой экономический эффект дает такой активный рост внутреннего турпотока?
Bring to Russia this increase in the tourism exchanges. In many countries across the world, tourism is one of the dynamic industries. Well, we shouldn't go far. Yeah. You know that around 5 million people from Russia go to Turkey, and this is an important source of income for the budget of the country. Tourism is becoming an increasingly efficient industry across many economies of the world, and this should also be the case in Russia, given the vast tourism potential we have, and that's why the government has adopted a whole program dedicated to developing internal tourism. A lot has been said on the subject. I'm not going to add anything new, but to these ends, we need to develop the infrastructure, we need to care for the environment to make sure that the development of tourism does not have a harmful effect on the environment. We've got many projects like the 5 Seas and Lake Baikal. Many are aware of about that and have heard about it. There are special preferences to those who build small hotels, especially if these are not permanent buildings, and all of that is delivering results. There is a wonderful region of Russia, the Russian Far East, and its tourism potential is infinite, and it's going to attract an increasing number of tourists, and it's great that Russian citizens are turning their gazes increasingly towards internal tourism opportunities, because it means staying within your area of culture, of your language. You don't have to run into problems when crossing the border, the customs, and you can communicate with our history, with our tradition, with our nature. And this is something fascinating, that's magnificent, but we still have a lot to do to bolster this process. And as for the benefits for the people, well, if you live in a territory which is visited by tourists, then your level of living, standard of living is growing, because it means more money coming into the regional budget and to the budgets of all levels, and also brings money to the citizens who live in this region. The more attractive a region, the more investment it attracts from the private investors. So this is a win-win situation.
Это перспективы. Если даже посмотреть на те цифры, которые есть сегодня, в принципе, я думаю, они говорят о том, что в экономике страны все хорошо, безработица у нас 2,4%, рекордно низкий уровень, но при этом, если посмотреть на, опять же, статистические данные, сейчас есть нехватка кадров в ключевых отраслях экономики. Как восполнить пробел, потому что, например, на январь нехватка была у 47% предприятий промышленности. И вот такой низкий уровень безработицы – это показатель того, что хорошими темпами развивается экономика, или
these are some
нас
of the latest statistics. Does it mean that the economy is doing too well, or maybe we simply lack manpower? Well, the economy is doing well, but there is a lot to do. You know, we remember Faustus by Goethe. Oh, please stop, wonderful moment in time. We never should stop. We have to reach for the horizon. Nothing can ever be, all can never be good all the time. But of course, the economy is developing steadily on the whole. Last year, we were rejoicing because our GDP grew by 3.4%, if my memory serves me right. Whereas in the first 6 months this year, and this is something we discussed yesterday, I said the GDP grows by 4%. Mr. Oreshkin has corrected me, it's 4.6% in the first 6 months this year. This is a very good indicator for our economy. Well, I think it's going to be adjusted by the end of the year, but we can expect that at least it's going to be no less than last year, but probably the GDP growth is going to be even superior to the growth last year, and that is the most important indicator for the state of the economy. In Malaysia, inflation stands at 2%. Unfortunately, in Russia, it stands at a higher. Our target for inflation is 4%, but right now it's around 9.2%. But right now there is a downward trend. Right now inflation stands at 8.9% and is decreasing, which is a good thing. As far as lack of manpower is concerned, Mr. Solzhenitsyn, whom Prime Minister has mentioned, he used to say that the most important task for the government is to preserve its citizens, its population. We have to care for families with children. We have to preserve the population. But the labor market is indeed in a unique position. Around 2.5% is the unemployment rate, which is a historic low. This is due to the demands of real manufacturing sector. How do we address this issue? Well, of course, we need to care for the population. We've got to increase the birth rate. We've got to create the favorable environment to make it fashionable to have as many children as possible. You know, in the past, families used to have 8-9 children per family. But that is just one avenue to pursue. The other one is to increase the labor productivity to make sure we can do more with fewer people. Well, as far as how to go about that, well, Vice President Han Zheng has mentioned several instruments and tools we need to introduce: artificial intelligence. We have to introduce new management methods for production, automate. I remember Japan, which we took, becoming the fourth economy in the world in terms of purchasing parity. But I think there are 10 times more robots working there than in Russia. There's much for us to do.
We should also dedicate us to genetics, biology, agriculture. We have a lot to do in all these fields. And personnel as well. We should train personnel. This is one of the most important tasks of our government. That is why there are the new national projects that is called personnel. Well, let's continue with economic issues. Mr. President, we met a week ago at another session of Central Bank. The rate is going to be 18%, and it is already said that this time 18% will be preserved. As for the loans, and the growth is the same, and the growth is 2.2%. This is according to the Central Bank data. How can you explain the situation? How can you explain that the rate is very high and the rate loans are different? Well, this depends on two moments. First of all, that the loans, the consumer loans, is at a very high level because people do not really feel the key rate. And as for loans for organizations, there are certain planes that have already been designed, and despite the increase of the key rate, they keep getting loans. And the second thing is that we have already made a decision according to which we support separate sectors of our economy. There are state instruments related to subsidizing some kind of rates for certain sectors and projects. This is the explanation. The governor of the central bank, Ms. Nabiulina, said that the scale of overheating of the economy was the greatest in the last 16 years. Are there any risks for stability, and how are we going to freeze the situation, to cool the situation? Well, we're going to increase the key rate, cancel subsidized loan, mortgage. There are also preferences for IT mortgages in the Russian Far East, in the Arctic, family mortgages. These are the ways that we're going to follow to cool the situation. There is another factor. Stable work of the government, of the finance ministry, in order to balance the budget. I speak about investment. We've already spoken about the figures in the Russian Far East. But in 2023, according to the statistic, was the growth of investment was 9.8 growth. After the growth in 2022, the trend continues. This trend will continue in investment, and what can also be increased. The preservation of the same pace of investment will be difficult, knowing the circumstances that we have been speaking, but we need to strive to do it. There are unique and special instruments of support that I have mentioned. But I'll repeat, preserving the same pace of investment will be difficult. The government has to think where and in which fields the business will be supported, so that there would not be any risks for collapse in the economy. Another topic that does not concern the economy of the Russian Far East, I would like to ask you about the elections in the US. Maybe you have a favorite candidate there. And in November, when we know the results of this race, are you going to call the new president to congratulate the new president? Well, it's been long since I've called any leaders of Europe or the US, but we're not against any type of contacts. We're not limiting them. Yes, sometimes we exchange some kind of information using different channels. First of all, through the foreign ministry. It's not for us to determine. These are elections of the US people. I said that if we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris. So that is what we are going to do. So it was, well, he said that we should, that is why we should also do that. Well, her laugh, she's laughing, her laugh is so fascinating. It means that everything is good, and if everything is good,
Трамп, он же ввел столько количества всяких ограничений и санкций в отношении.
For instance, if we're speaking about Joe Biden, there are so many sanctions against Russia introduced, and if everything is good with Ms. Harris, maybe she'll refrain herself from such measures, or maybe she'll change them. So in the end, it will be the choice of the US people, and we will respect this choice. Speaking about the US, in August, there was the exchange of prisoners between the US and Russia. What countries were the mediators contributed to that? So it means that we can have dialogue with the West. And one more addition, in an interview to TASS, our ambassador in the US, Mr. Antonov, said that there are 60 Russians in US prisons. Well, we care about all the Russians that need our help and that they are abroad, and we will continue to do that. As for the exchanges that we already had, many countries participated in this work, in this mission. As for the journalist the US journalist that worked as journalist, but in fact he was gathering intelligence data. Saudi prince participated in this work to exchange prisoners, and thanks to that we managed to return our citizens to our country. As well, the president of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, provided a platform to do that, as well as other countries also participated in this work. Some other countries showed goodwill, and in the end, I think that we managed to reach a positive result in the interest of everyone who participated in it. And first of all, our citizens returned to their fatherland. The most important thing that those who were doing some very important things for our country. And I ask everyone here to have a round of applause. Let's return to the topic of our session, Mr. Prime Minister. You already had a meeting with Mr. President. There are prospects, and we need to develop our cooperation. We have agreement about free trade between EAEU with Iran, Iraq, and Serbia. And the same agreement will be signed with Mongolia. There are also negotiations with Indonesia and some other countries. Are there any such ideas in Malaysia?
We believe in free trade, and there's no restrictions, and I've assured President Putin last night that whatever avenues are being introduced will continue. I mean, we still have good relations with Iran in most of these countries, and if the parameters are right, encouraging free trade, we will pursue. There's no issue at all to my mind. Even now, without the special arrangement, you can see this new wave of interest from both sides, in Malaysia and Russia. Now, with the agreement, it would of course further facilitate and assist the business community. In fact, we're inviting delegations representing banks, aerospace industry, and some others to come. And we will. What is important is that my assurance that you will see a faster change, a more positive change in terms of the trade and also exchanges between Malaysia and Russia, and we're determined to record that as soon as possible.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Mr.
President, you spoke about the way to solve the problem of the deficit of energy in the Far East that is going to be forecasted. What can you say about electricity generation? Well, it depends on the region. In Siberia, for instance, there is excessive electricity generation, and in the Russian forest there is scarcity of energy, so we need to take timely measures, for instance, repair facilities, modernize deeply certain facilities. So we have plans that are being designed, some of them are already approved. We need to do it on a timely basis and to establish an economically based plan in this sphere. Concerning energy, there is another question about foreign markets. At the end of the year, the agreement about transit of Russian energy through Ukraine ends, and Ukraine said that it's not going to prolong the contract. What the energy prospects of Europe? Do we need to hear the voices of those who are going to suffer from it? Well, there is the head of Gazprom, just here in the front row. And also I'm going to speak to German Oskovich. They are all here. This is good. They all show interest to the development of their business in the Russian Far East. As for Ukraine, we are not against transferring our energy through Ukraine because we intend, and Gazprom company intend, to fulfill all our obligations to our clients. We have long-term contracts with them. One of the obligatory components of this work is the transit of our energy. We have transit contracts that expires on the 31st of December this year. But if Ukraine doesn't want to prolong these contracts, we cannot make them do that. So our main consumers in Europe do not want to do that. But they support with military products and with finances to Ukraine. But Ukraine does not want to transit our energy, our gas. That is why the volume of the gas that we provide to Europe will reduce. We will use Turkish flow or other gas pipelines that are used for domestic consumption, but they will help to support energy stability in Europe. But this is their choice. We don't know how this is going to affect them. We have our own issues, and they should dedicate themselves to their own issues. I don't know how to characterize all of this, how to characterize this attitude to their own partners and allies. This is strange for me. I cannot understand that. They blew up our gas pipeline on the bottom of the Baltic Sea. two pipelines of Nord Stream 1 and one pipeline of Nord Stream 2.
Что мешает тому же правительству Германии кнопку нажать, договориться с нами и включить? Сколько это? 25 миллиардов кубических метров по одной нитке.
It means that one gas
27,5 миллиардов кубических метров газа тут же пошло бы в
gas can go through one pipeline of
Почему
Nord
они этого не
Stream.
делают? Я не понимаю. Получать через
Why wouldn't they
территорию
open it? Why
Украины
wouldn't they
могут, получать
use
через
the gas pipeline that we
турецкий
have?
поток могут, а по
They can
нитке,
use the
которая
gas
идет
that
по
they receive from the
Адмиралтейскому морю,
Turkish
не могут. На мой
pipeline
взгляд, это
is okay, but they cannot use the gas pipeline that goes through the bottom of the Baltic Sea.
Чушь просто.
This is something absurd.
Ну не хотят, не
Why?
надо. Мы будем
Well, if they don't want to,
наращивать
okay.
Значит, наши поставки
We will
в другие регионы
raise
мира
our
постепенно.
supplies to
Да,
other
вот
regions of the world. We'll do it
с Китайской Народной Республикой
consistently,
давно до всяких
consecutively.
этих кризисов в
For
Европе
instance, speaking
и на
about
украинском
China,
направлении
even before the conflicts,
проект есть хороший,
before Ukraine,
значит, по поставкам в Китайскую Народную
there were very
Республику.
good
В следующем
supplies
году
to
мы выйдем на
China, and
проектную
next
мощность
year we are
38 миллиардов
going to reach
кубических метров.
38 cubic
Плюс с Дальнего
meters
Востока, вот отсюда, с Сахалин, Владивосток,
to
тоже в Китайскую Народную
China from here, from Sakhalin, from Vladivostok, 10
Мы
more
изучаем другие
cubic
маршруты.
meters,
Повторяю, это
cubic
никак не
meters,
связано с
it does
событиями
not
на
concern
Украине. Это просто наши
Ukraine.
договоренности,
These are agreements
которые были
that
достигнуты
were reached
много лет тому назад.
many
Мы все
years
это
ago.
реализуем. Просто будем,
We are
плюс будем
implementing all of that,
развивать,
and we are going to
значит,
develop
сжижение газа. Да, и здесь нам пытаются создать
liquefaction of
проблемы.
natural gas.
Господин Мичельсон знает об этом лучше, чем кто-либо другой. Но все равно
There are
это
experts who know about that
развивается, и
even
доля
better
России
than everyone
в
else, and the
поставках на
share
мировой
of
рынке сжиженного
Russia's
природного газа
supply of
постепенно
LNG is
увеличивается. Она не
increasing.
такая уж и большая,
It is
как бы
not
нам
really
хотелось.
big. We
Но
wanted
будем
it
все
to be
равно,
bigger,
несмотря ни на какие
but
сложности, которые
despite
нам пытаются
any
создать,
complexities
все равно
that
будем это делать. Ведь
other
в чем
countries try
проблема
to
здесь?
create for us, we are
Значит,
still going
кто
to
бы и
supply
как бы
LNG.
не пытался закрыть нашу энергетику, это
Some
невозможно,
countries
потому что
try to
на
impede
пределе
the
находится
development
добыча
of our energy,
в
but
соответствии
this
с
is not
потребностями
possible
мирового
because
рынка. Вот,
the production of
это
energy is at a
невозможно,
limit.
просто, понимаете?
That is
Это
why
невозможно.
why all these actions are impossible.
Вот представим себе, что
Let's imagine
взяли завтра и все закрыли.
that tomorrow everything is
Газ,
going to be
нефть нашу и
closed.
так далее.
Gas,
Но
oil
мировая
that we
экономика не
supply.
выдержит такого закрытия.
The world economy is not
Просто
going
цены
to
подрастут до небес,
overcome
и
this.
все
The
равно,
prices are
все равно
going
будут покупать. Без
to
этого невозможно.
skyrocket, but people will
В
still
этом все
buy
дело.
it.
Ведь когда
This is the cause.
наши недоброжелатели
When
и те, кто вводят
those
незаконные
who
ограничения,
show
о
us
которых говорил заместитель председателя Китайской
do not
Народной
wish us
Республики,
anything
делают
well,
это. Они
when
делают
they do that,
не от чистого сердца, не от большого ума.
They do not do this from their heart,
Потому
and
что
they are not very intelligent.
результата
And
нет.
if they
Они
do that,
руководствуются только
they
чем?
are guided only
Высокомерием
by
и
their arrogance
самоуверенностью.
and their
А результат обратный ожидаемому. Поэтому мы свои вопросы решим. Да, с какими-то, может быть, потерями, но все равно решим.
We
А
are
те,
going to
кто
solve
не
our
хотят с нами
problems.
сотрудничать,
If
ну
they
что
don't
ж,
want
пускай
to
несут
cooperate with
тогда
us,
убытки. Мы же видим, что в
then
европейских
they
странах
will
происходит. Многие из них балансируют на
lose
грани
money. We see
рецессии.
what is
И
happening
ситуация
in
будет
Europe,
усугубляться.
and the
Потому
situation
что
is on the
те,
brink
кто
of
поставляют
recession in
им
some of the countries, because
энергоресурсы,
those who
заботятся
provide energy
прежде
resources
всего
to them,
о своих
first of all, think
собственных
about their
интересах
own
национальных.
interests, of their
Те
own
же
national
Штаты.
interests.
Ну что, в 2-3 раза поставляют,
Because
да, значит, или на сколько там, процентов на 50,
the
наверное, на 60
prices,
больше, чем
they provide
наши
50 or 60%
газ,
more.
я имею в виду прежде всего.
And first of all, I'm speaking about gas.
Экономика Европы, в
Of
том
course,
числе
the
Германия,
European economy, first of all, Germany,
на наши энергоносители,
that is based on our energy,
очень серьезные испытания.
is really
Многие отрасли просто
affected,
закрываются.
and many
В этом всё дело.
industries
Но это
just
не наш
close.
выбор. Мы
But this is
готовы.
not our choice.
Пожалуйста,
We are ready.
договоритесь с Польшей, чтобы
You could agree with
Польша открыла
Poland for Poland
трубопроводные
to
системы. Они
open
существуют.
their pipelines because they exist.
Значит, Ямал, Западная Европа.
Yamal, Western Europe. It was closed by Poland, and now Ukraine
еще маршрут.
closes another route.
Дну Балтийского моря,
As for
Северный
the
поток
Nord Stream 2, it is not being used. If they don't want to, well, that's their choice.
Для нас будет определенное сокращение
Yes,
доходов,
we're going
но ничего,
to
больше
have
Газпром будет поставлять
less
внутри страны.
inflow of finances, but then we'll use it inside of our country.
будем развивать социальную
we will be willing to develop the so-called social
газификацию другую
gasification.
немножко уточню по поводу,
I'd
кстати
like
говоря,
to
«Газпрома». Алексей
specify
Борисович
about
назвал тот объем, который шел
Since
по
we've heard Mr.
веткам Северного
Miller
потока.
mentioning
Как вы
the
считаете,
amount of
учитывая
gas being
сейчас те проекты,
transported through the
которые
North
находятся в
Stream
стадии
pipeline,
реализации
I
и в
wanted to
Средней
ask you
Азии,
about
и с
those
Ираном,
projects
и
that are being
с
implemented in
Китаем,
Middle Asia,
есть ли
with
перспективы у
Iran and
«Газпрома»
China?
восстановить
Does
прежний объем
Gazprom
поставок
have
на внешние
prospects
рынки?
to recover the current
Я уже
volume of gas
упоминал об
supplies
этом,
to the
о том,
foreign
что
markets?
мы выходим на
Well,
проектную
I've
мощность
mentioned that
по
already. We're about
поставкам
to
в
reach
Китайскую
design
Народную
capacity of
Республику.
supplies to the
Что
People's
касается
Republic
поставок
of
в Среднюю
China.
Азию, там
As for
в
the
Иран,
supplies
это
to the
тоже не
Middle
связано.
Asia,
Вот
well,
хочу
Iran
понять, чтобы было
specifically,
понятно. Не
I want to
связано
make it very
напрямую с
clear that it's not
украинскими
directly
событиями.
related to
Просто
the events in
экономики этих стран
Ukraine. It's just
развиваются.
that the
Развиваются
economies of those
активно.
countries
Им
are
требуются
actively
дополнительные
developing.
ресурсы.
They
Вот и
therefore
все.
require additional resources.
Тот же Узбекистан.
It's
Я
as
уже
simple as
говорил об
that.
этом, но это
Again,
хорошо
take example
известно.
of Uzbekistan. It is a
Прирост
well-known
населения в
fact.
Узбекистане
The
миллион в год.
incremental growth of population is 1 million
Миллион в
people a
год
year.
плюсом.
Just
Там уже
imagine it.
37 миллионов человек.
37 million
Значит,
people are already
совсем скоро
living in
будет 40
this
и так
country.
далее.
Very soon it will be
Экономика
40
растет в
million.
том числе.
The economy is growing.
Понимаете? Ну, конечно, у них еще есть обязательства по
And of course,
на
they
внешних
have
рынках.
some commitments
Конечно, просто республике
undertaken
там
at the foreign
требуются
markets.
дополнительные ресурсы.
Obviously, all
В
of that
Ташкенте было
requires
минус
additional
21
resources.
позапрошлом
It
году.
was minus
Такого
21
никогда раньше не
degrees
было в
centigrade
истории,
in
наверное.
Tashkent
Ну,
last
конечно,
winter. That has
им
never
нужно,
happened
но
before, I
мы
guess. Obviously, they
располагаем
need more
такими
fuel,
ресурсами.
more energy
Будем
resources,
согласовывать
and we have them
наши
available.
действия с
So we will be
Туркменистаном,
coordinating
конечно.
our actions with Turkmenistan,
Иран просит нас
obviously.
давно уже о
Iran has
поставках.
long been
Тоже
requesting
это
us to provide
очень
supplies.
удобное место для нас, месторождение рядом.
This is very convenient for
Мы
us.
сейчас
The reserve is close
я полагаю, что это
nearby,
вполне
and we'll be thinking
реализуемый
about
проект,
that.
имея
I
в виду,
believe
что
this is
рынки
a
огромные
very doable
и в соседних
project.
странах с
The
Ираном.
neighboring
Просто колоссальные потребности.
markets are
Здесь существуют
huge.
разные
I
возможности.
mean, the markets close to
И
Iran,
разные
and
рынки
the
будем
opportunities there are
осваивать.
colossal,
По
and we
будем
will be
работать,
able
будем,
to pursue those markets.
сжижать, как я уже сказал.
And of course, we'll be engaging
Постепенно
in
будем
gas liquefaction
восстанавливать,
projects,
конечно,
and
объем
obviously,
продаж.
gradually, we will be
Здесь
recovering
и
the
сомнений
volume
нет.
of
Да и собственную
sales on
экономику
our
будем
side. No
развивать.
doubt on that. And of
Нам
course, we will be
вот во
developing
многих
our
регионах,
domestic economy
кстати, вот здесь
in
вот на
many
Дальнем
regions,
Востоке
and
не
specifically
хватает же
here in the
газовой
Far
генерации.
East, there is a clear
Нужно
deficit of
объединять,
gas
у «Газпрома»
generating
такие планы
capacities,
есть,
and Gazprom
объединять
already has plans to
европейскую часть
merge the European part of gas transporting system and the Far Eastern part, so that we take care of the proper supplies and
Спасибо. Мы
distribution. We
продолжим
have
говорить об
plans for that.
энергетике.
Thank you.
Господин
Let's
Ибрагим,
continue this
Малайзия вторая по
conversation about
величине
energy. Mr.
страна,
Ibrahim,
производитель
Malaysia is
нефти и
the
газа в
second
Юго-Восточной
largest
Азии.
producer of
Ну
oil
и,
and
кстати,
gas
те
in
самые знаменитые
Southeastern
башни
Asia.
Близнецы,
And by the way, the
Петронас
renowned
столица, как раз
Petronas
называется в
towers
честь
in the
крупнейшей
capital are
энергокомпании
named
в
after the
стране.
largest
Как
energy
вы
company
оцениваете
in
сейчас
your
ситуацию
country?
на
What is your
нефтяном
current
газовом
assessment
рынке в
of the
целом
situation in
мире?
the oil
И
and gas market
рассматриваете
in the
сегодня
world
Малайзия
in
какие-то
general,
совместные
and whether
проекты с
Malaysia is
Россией
considering
именно
any
в
joint
энергосекторе?
project with Russia in energy sector?
And we are discussing the issue of energy transition, where I think Russia has an upper hand. We're discussing that. We are of course still continuing exploration because the deadline is of course to ease the dependence on traditional dependence on oil or coal. But still, for now, it is important. I mean, we cannot deny the fact that the import of coal from Russia comes about $600 million. So temporarily, this energy is still required until we are able to transition into green energy. But for now, the focus is there. We still remain to be an important player, and we will therefore have some sort of a synergy, working relations, to ensure that the transition into hydrogen, green technology would be of immense benefit in our attempt to progress as a country that's not totally dependent on fuel.
Спасибо. Владимир Владимирович, вы уже упомянули в своей речи, что СМП у нас сейчас активно развивается, и он используется также для перевозки энергоресурсов. Вы говорили, что к 2030 году показатель планируется увеличить до 150 миллионов тонн на перевозки. Как вы считаете, достаточно ли сегодня темпами идет строительство не только инфраструктуры, но и самих судов, которые будут курсировать по этому маршруту? Ну, например, накануне тоже посетили место, где в будущем строиться будет новая ветка торговых судов здесь, под Владивостоком.
visited a shipyard nearby here in Vladivostok. Indeed, this is a question that should be at the very center of our attention. Primarily because we need to take care of creating of the necessary infrastructure and capacities to take care of cargo transportation. So those are the vessels carrying cargo and the icebreaker fleet, of course. Russia has capacities of unique icebreakers. We have 34 diesel-driven icebreakers of different classes and 7 nuclear icebreakers that we have right now. 3 are already in construction, and the 4th is to be commissioned in 2025. So 1 plus 4 makes it to 11, and one more very big icebreaker of unprecedented capacities. As far as I remember, that will be 136,000 horsepower. Well, if I'm to measure an icebreaker in horsepower, this is the leader of our fleet, and it is already being constructed here in Vladivostok at the Zvezda shipping yard. And that would provide for year-round operations, especially so that this particular new icebreaker is not just powerful, but also very broad and big in size, and could provide for the whole caravans of vessels to go through the Northern Sea route. We obviously need to build the vessels to carry cargoes, but we'll be also extending the opportunities of the shipbuilding capacities of ours, also in the European part of the country. We've been discussing it just yesterday with Mr. Kostin, the head of VTB Bank, and also
нашу объединенную судостроительную компанию людьми, перспективы развития европейской части. И здесь мы правильно обратили внимание, мы смотрели вчера место для будущего судостроительного завода. Уверен, мы его построим, так же как с большими сложностями, но все-таки построили звезду здесь на Дальнем Востоке. Нужно строить инфраструктуру,
We need to continue that kind of infrastructure development, construction of seaports, proper maintenance, of course, safety and security of operations of sea vessels, protection of the environment. We have to approach those issues systemically and comprehensively, and I'm convinced our plans will be implemented, especially taking into account the current change happening to the climate. The opportunities of the Northern Sea route are becoming more abundant, and I'm convinced that it will be working the whole year round. This is extremely important for the Russian economy and global economy alike, for our friendly economies, specifically for the economy of the People's Republic of China, who is demonstrating lively interest towards joint work in this area. So we would like to invite all of our partners to join us. Now, we talked about construction. Let's talk about construction of apartments, residential construction here in the Far East. We know that a subsidized mortgage is still available here, despite the fact that it is no longer available in the rest of the country. And I'd like to quote Herman Graf here. The exit of and the completion of the subsidized mortgage is overdue. What do you think? Have we resolved the problem of availability of housing now since we closed the program? Well, we've just had Mr. Ibrahim quoting Tolstoy and Chekhov. Why are you quoting Herman Graf? Well, is he another great novelist in Russia apparently now? Well, whatever. If we are to talk about construction and residential construction, I do believe we have achieved some outstanding results in construction. We've never seen the construction volume of residential housing. The one we have last year is about 110 million. This is an impressive number, although the target was 120, but 110 is already a very good number.
Закончилось действие льготной ипотеки, конечно, это не может не сказаться на рынке жилищного строительства. Но, повторяю, он сейчас поддерживается льготной ипотекой Дальнего Востока, Арктики, семейной, айтишной льготной ипотекой. Но ведь смысл и действие финансовых властей,
But
правительства
the
заключается
actions
в том,
of
как
our
вы
financial
сказали,
authorities
чтобы
and the
охладить
Russian
несколько
government
этот рынок,
are aimed at
чтобы
cooling down the
Тоже
markets a
цитировала в
little
очередной
bit.
раз, то Набиуллина говорила.
And I would like to quote
Ну и хорошо.
Madam
Но
Nabiullina in this regard.
в целом,
That's true.
конечно, такой эффект и
The
ожидается,
governors of the central
чтобы не
bank
было
mentioned
перегрева
that
рынка,
we can't
и
afford to
чтобы
have
это
the
не
market
влияло на
overheated,
макроэкономические
and we
показатели.
do
Но
not
тем
want
не
that to
менее, на
badly
что хочу
affect our
обратить внимание, у
macroeconomic
нас очень хороший
indicators. But
задел
nonetheless, I want to say that we have a very solid backup and a very solid foundation in terms of construction.
Его чаще раньше цитировали, сейчас меньше.
Well,
Господин
now
Мутко,
we do not get to quote Mr. Mutko that frequently, but he's still a renowned expert, I have to say, and he knows how to find the right words to express himself. So Mr. Mutko is doing a great job there from all of his heart. Yeah, all of his heart, but most importantly with very good results. And this is not an irony on my side. Indeed, we see an impressive result, 110 million square meters of residential construction commissioned last year. And that is happening thanks to the work of the corporation that Mr. Mutko is leading now. Again, we have some very solid foundation there, 163, 165 million square meters is the amount of construction that we have. So I'm sure next year we will be fine. One more question to you, Mr. President, and then we will move on to other topics. One of the most hotly debated topics lately is that starting from November there is a new law coming into force legalizing mining of cryptocurrencies. Before we had Federal Law 259 adopted on digital assets. Does that mean that Russia is heading into the area of digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, and should we expect some more legal novelties in this regard? Well, I believe already today Russia is one of the world leaders in terms of mining of cryptocurrencies and bitcoins, and I guess this is due to the surplus of power generating capacities in Siberia. But there are some questions associated with that. We are obviously happy to see that businesses operating in this area is getting some good profits, but nonetheless, the surplus of power generating capacities in Siberia must not become a deficit
был бы сдерживающим фактором развития сибирских регионов.
Interfering factor for development of Siberian regions. Mining is good, but construction of apartments for our citizens, construction of enterprises and factories will all need energy supplies.
Не менее, а может быть даже более важно. Именно поэтому правительство приняло решение, которое должно соответствующим образом структурировать эту работу. Но что касается цифровых валют, цифрового рубля, то решение Центрального банка принято. Сейчас просто идет работа по наращиванию этих объемов. Цифровой рубль – это просто один из видов валюты, национальной валюты, которые будут пользоваться и экономической деятельности граждан.
Спасибо. Ну, как обещала, переходим к другой теме. Господин Ибрагим, давайте не обойдем стороной ближневосточный конфликт. Вот каким вы видите
the Middle East. Please share with us your vision. What is the exit from the current situation?
As I've consistently said, we cannot use the narrative of many in the media or Western capitals that it all began with the 7th of October, Hamas attack. It all began with colonization. It all began with the Nakba in 1948. It all began because of the reluctance to accept the resolutions of the United Nations consistently and of continued harassment of settlers in the West Bank. So I think we need to put the narrative right. Do we want a solution? Yes. And I commend, of course, the Russian position, the Chinese position. Foreign Minister Wang Yi have taken initiative. And many countries, and I think the majority of countries have taken a position, including recognition of the state of Palestine. But why is it not happening? Because of the intransigence of Israel, and unfortunately with the total support of the United States. In fact, giving him a standing ovation when atrocities are being committed. That's why I ask my colleagues, even in the West, where's the humanity? Why do you talk about justice? Why do you go and preach to us about human rights and democracy? Why is there contradiction when it comes to treatment of issues happening in the world? And again, what we need in this world now is a consistent, coherent message. Yes, we respect freedom. Yes, we respect the dignity of man or woman. Yes, we must oppose all forms of colonization. Because what is the issue in Palestine now, not only in Gaza, but all Palestine, is the issue of dispossession. You conquer, you take people's land, you dispossess, you kill them, you detain them, you take over their houses, you treat them as a open-air prison, and this is known. That is why I know we come from a small country. We know our limits. That's why we thank our dear friends here for their support. But it is creating so much a problem. Not only the Muslim world, but those who believe in freedom and justice. It is creating problems for us. Because people are saying, why are you not doing anything more when people are being killed daily? And that is my point. So I just hope and pray that there is finally sanity will prevail to those who have influence in the world, because they are finally accountable. No country, no person can continue to do this gross injustice and tolerate the atrocities and think they are safe. I don't believe that can ever be accepted. We want justice to all mankind. And of course, we cannot deny justice because of their different color or different religion or different creed. Justice means justice for humanity. And it's time that Palestine and Palestinians are treated as human beings, not as slaves or second-class people. Thank you.
Спасибо. Владимир Владимирович, продолжая тему
President Putin, as a follow-up to the issue of the conflict in the Middle East, Moscow has repeatedly conveyed its position to both parties. Do they hear us, both sides of the Palestinian conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, I could repeat everything that our dear guest has just been saying. The position of Russia is not conditioned by the particular situation, a particular precedent. Our position has always been based on the positions taken earlier, and those decisions should be at the heart of resolution of any conflict. Here we're talking about establishment of two independent states. And this position is shared by many people in the world, including, as strangely as it may sound, by many people in the United States. But unfortunately, this conflict has not been resolved, and this particular issue is exactly the reason for the current acute conflict. On our side, and by the way, today's problem is largely related to the attempts of the United States of America to have a monopoly of settlement of this conflict. Because the United States is not perceived as a country with neutral position regarding this conflict, and this is exactly the problem. But I'd like to reiterate that we are going to do everything in our power, and I was saying that earlier at the meeting with Mahmoud Abbas. He's been to Moscow lately. We are going to do everything possible to make our contribution to settlement and resolution of this long overdue conflict. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next topic. And sorry, as for humanitarian matters, we are doing our best to address the matters related to the hostages that were taken, and I have to say that in this regard we are achieving certain results, and we are very happy about it, and we'll keep intensifying our efforts and doing that in the future.
Thank you.
Перейдем к еще одной теме.
One more topic. Mr. Ibrahim, in your introduction, you pointed out that Malaysia is the chair of the ASEAN for the future. What will the priorities in working be, and what will you be? How will you be coordinating your efforts as far as Russia is concerned?
Because that region, sub-region, is the most peaceful in the world right now, and economically most vibrant. The secret is, of course, is centrality, is independent foreign policy position. We refuse to be dictated by any powers, and we maintain excellent relations with our neighbors. With Thailand, we're having special economic zone to promote and ensure there is more economic activity in the poorer sectors in north of Malaya and South Thailand. With Singapore, we have a special economic zone in Johor, which would encourage more business and investments. And with Indonesia, we have excellent relations. I was just in Brunei. And even on issues that is considered to be quite contentious, our decision is to continue with bilateral mechanisms, multilateral mechanisms. The only issue that we have to confront is Myanmar. It's not spreading in terms of its military activities, but it's causing some problems because, for example, Malaysia has to contend with 200,000 refugees from Myanmar. And I thought my position as ASEAN chair is, of course, to try and resolve. We don't want to dictate. See, the problem, the failure sometimes in dealing with Myanmar, it's the military junta. You want to ensure democratic transition. I think what is important for Myanmar is peace. Get all the parties to speak and talk to each other and maintain peace. Then they decide for themselves what form of government they want to have, and do not dictate. And our problem with Myanmar in the past is to have to try and dictate to them what sort of government they should have. So in our 5-point consensus, we think that just respect these fundamental rules would move. But on a different note, different level, although we do have growing issues about particularly with the Philippines and China, our position is always to encourage the Philippines to continue to engage actively and try to resolve in the true spirit of ASEAN. And if we need to assist, we will continue to engage with our friends because we always feel that there is a way for the future. I think more so, taking that position because of centrality, we do not want this region to be, again, a contentious region for the superpowers. If we have a problem in the region, we resolve in the region. And we do not support any intrusion of other powers into the region. If we have problems, we try and resolve. And that's why I think my presence here in Vladivostok is to convey that message, that I think, contrary to some of the perceptions, we feel that our task is to ensure that we serve our people, that economically it has to be vibrant, and we want to show a new tradition of and diplomacy that engage with most countries, and Russia included. Some countries in the West may have a problem with Russia, they will deal with it. As far as we are concerned, we do not have a problem. We have some issues we want to discuss, we bring it up, you see. So I think we will start that tradition. So in ASEAN cohesion, we want to maintain that sort of relations. We may choose to disagree. I have very good relations with Premier Li Qiang. Excellent. It does not mean that we can agree on every issue, but we disagree as close friends. They talk about the issue of the more contentious issue with the South China Sea, and they keep on harping. You have a problem with China because of the border. we have a problem with every single country in ASEAN. I mean, those bordering Malaysia, because Malaysia is central. We have a slight border problem with Thailand, with Indonesia, with Singapore, with Brunei, with the Philippines. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. These are issues that we discuss. It does not in any way seem to be antagonistic. Why is it when it comes to China, you expect us to go and quarrel with them? I think we will continue to negotiate. Yes, we agree, and some issues we disagree. But in my experience now, I've taken over almost 2 years now as Prime Minister, I don't have a problem with China. So why must countries outside our turf insist that you have a problem? I don't. Now you have a problem, you deal with it. So I think that should be the ASEAN position, and to focus on the fundamentals. Yes, on economy, yes, on technology, yes, on AI, energy, and tourism. And I think it will be a great example of a sub-region that is peaceful and economically vibrant. Thank you.
Спасибо. Господин Джен, у меня к вам вопрос. По итогам прошлого года товарооборот Китая с ASEAN превысил $911,5 миллиардов. Об этом сообщала главное таможенное управление страны. Как вы в целом сегодня видите, оцениваете экономические перспективы экономического роста КНР?
For 40 years, we have been conducting a policy of openness. When China has acceded to WTO, it has continued along the lines of the development of cooperation with countries in the sphere of trade. Within quite a number of years, the Chinese economy has been developing quite vibrantly, and despite the fact that we are the second economy in the world, the per capita income is slightly more than $12,000 per year. But the contribution of China to the world economy is more than 300%. China has become a trade partner for more than 140 countries in the world. President Putin and Prime Minister Anwar have put a very valuable proposal on the table which should be taken into account, and that concerns abolishing poverty in China. This will be a contribution to the development of the world economy as it is, because the population is more than approximately 18% of global population. So cooperation and exchange and partnerships with other countries in the world are also always conducted on the basis of mutually beneficial ties. President Putin has pointed out that we need to stick to mutually beneficial cooperation, which is quite right. And as you all know, not so long ago, we conducted a third plenary session of the Chinese Communist Party, and a decision was taken to continue reforms of the Chinese economy. And China will continue along the path of reforms and will continue to expand its relations with other countries. China always regulates its relations with other countries. And I think that the development of China is a huge contribution into the development of the global economy. Thank you.
Постепенно мы приближаемся к завершению нашей пленарной сессии. Владимир Владимирович,
we've been talking for approximately 3 hours about the way the Far East will look in the future. What is the most important factor for its development? Growth of the population. Population growth.
Нам нужно создать условия, о которых мы так много сегодня говорили, для того, чтобы и рождаемость повышалась, и желание у людей, прежде всего молодых людей, было приехать сюда, в этот регион, замечательный, блестящий, регион с такими хорошими перспективами и связать с ним свою жизнь.
Спасибо.
Prospective future.
Ну и последний вопрос, который я хочу сейчас адресовать всем участникам нашей сегодняшней дискуссии, звучит он следующим образом. Какие главные вызовы стоят перед нашими странами сегодня? Вот назовите их, пожалуйста, и каковы потенциальные ответы на эти вызовы. Господин Ибрахим, давайте с вас начнем.
That countries may have. Shall we begin with Mr. Ibrahim, please?
Normally you start with the senior guy. And the most senior in office is President Putin, out of respect.
Владимир Владимирович.
Спасибо.
Well, thank you.
Вопрос о будущем, да?
Well, the question is about the future, right?
Ну, что касается России,
то
мы должны обеспечить развитие экономики на собственных технологических решениях, высококвалифицированными, подготовленными, мотивированными кадрами. Это первое. А что касается нас всех вместе, имеется в виду, страны глобального юга в широком смысле слова, это, конечно, мы должны обеспечить мировое лидерство в экономике.
In the development of the economy, especially as far as the rates of growth are concerned. So the rate of growth in our country, this is what we are aiming at, and this is what we are going to achieve. The same question goes to you.
The issue is, of course, the economy. But how we view the economy is not unbridled capitalism of the past. It has to be a more humanistic approach towards development, which means, of course, economic growth, more investments, more trade, but at the same time, more compassionate, more care towards the welfare of people. Poverty, I think the Vice President has mentioned, housing, the President Putin has mentioned. I think these are issues that have been largely ignored. So the experience in some countries in the West with phenomenal growth, but abject poverty and poor housing conditions, low quality education is not our option. So which means having a growth that is sustainable means that protecting the environment, having good housing, quality education, and also anticipating fast enough the pace of change in a post-normal times, that is a new direction in terms of training of our young in digitalization, in AI, with values which is in deficit in the world today. I strongly believe that we want to progress as a country, as a nation. We cannot ignore humanity, values and ethics. It is a deficit in this world. That is why you see so many calamities, gross injustice and racism, even fanaticism, atrocities committed in the name of religion, because we do progress what dehumanize ourselves. That is why I started by referring to a lot of great literary works of Russian figures, because they always emphasize issues of ethics, moral and humanitarian ideals. Now, with that, I think we should learn from one another, and we should not learn the excesses of the past, particularly when it comes to gross injustice and continuing to grow but marginalize the society. Thank you.
Спасибо. Господин Зheng, вам тот же самый вопрос, какие главные вызовы сегодня стоят перед
Mr.
нашими
Zheng, what are
странами?
the challenges that our countries are facing nowadays?
我想说的是，就是
I'd
习
like
近
to
平
say
主席
that
曾经讲过，构建人类命运共
the
同体
president of the
是我
country,
们
Xi Jinping,
面临最大的一个
pointed
课
out
题。
that the society of common future for humanity is one of the most important
不同的发展阶段
challenges
都有不同
for
的一
the
些
countries of
诉
the
求
world, for the global
真正要实
population.
现人类命
We're
运共
all
同体，
on
将是我
different
们共
stages
同
of
面临最大的
development and have different issues of contention, but we need to build a society for common future. Thank
Я
you.
так понимаю, что мы заканчиваем.
Well,
И
as far as I
я хотел
understand
бы
that we
со своей
are
стороны
rounding
поблагодарить
up
наших
our
гостей
discussion, I
за
would like
их
to
яркие
extend my
выступления,
gratitude to
содержательные, и за
the guests
участие в
of
нашей
this
работе,
discussion
за
for
внимание
the
к тому, что
participation
происходит
in
в
this
России
discussion
и в
and
российском
the
дальнем Востоке.
attention to what is
Спасибо
happening
большое.
both in Russia and in the Far East.
И хочу обратиться к
And I would
аудитории.
like to
То есть, прежде
address
всего,
the
люди,
auditorium.
которые работают в
There are
сфере
people here
экономики,
who work in the sphere
государственные
of
служащие, которые сейчас
the economy
занимаются
or
обсуждением именно этих
representatives
вопросов.
of
Должен сказать,
state
что я глубоко
enterprises.
убежден, что
I'd like to
в том,
say
что
that I'm
предпринимательская
quite
деятельность это
sure
прежде всего
that
созидание.
entrepreneurship
И если мы
is
будем вот так к
above
этому
all
относиться,
creation
как к созидательному
of
процессу,
wealth
то
and
мы, безусловно,
prosperity.
достигнем всех
And if
целей,
we
которые перед собой
address it
ставим,
that way,
и
we will be able to
добьемся
achieve
решения
all
тех
the
задач, которые перед нами
tasks
стоят.
that
Хочу
we
вас
are
поблагодарить за
setting
участие в этой
before
работе
us. I'd
и
like
всем
to
нам
thank you
пожелать
for
успехов в
participating
реализации
in
наших планов.
these activities and events,
Спасибо.
and I hope that we'll realize our plans in the
Ну
future.
и я со
Thank
своей
you.
стороны, как модератор, хочу вновь
On
процитировать,
my
Владимир
side,
Владимирович,
I would
правда,
like
вас,
to quote
что подводя
you
итоги
this
сессии, можно
time.
сказать одно. Приоритет на весь 21
So
век.
the
Это Дальний
priority
Восток.
for the
Спасибо.
21st century
И
is
большое
the
спасибо
Far East.
нашей
Yes.
ведущей.
I'd like to
Спасибо
thank
вам
our
большое за
moderator.
совместную работу.
Thank you for the wonderful job you did. Thank you.